Hello, hello everyone. Welcome. I'm doing the moon hands as well. Welcome to a very special stream. As you can see, I am teaming up today with my very good friend Moon. We are going to be doing some witchy Q&A, some tarot readings, anything like that. We are celebrating a very special festival today. It is the Festival of Beltane, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So I am very happy that y'all have joined me tonight. And let me just see if Moon is ready to go.
Hi, DH.
Hi. Hi. I was just about to see if you were ready to go.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see my stream, but I've got you up in the corner there. We were both doing the moon hands at the same time. Although yours are much prettier than mine. Mine have no lovely nails.
Aw, I'm sure you have lovely hands. Caretaker hands,
More or
all the
less.
animals.
Yes. So hi, how are you?
I'm good. How was your Beltane day?
It was very relaxing, actually. Quite nice. I basically slept most of the day. A little bit of self-care there. How about you? Did you get up to anything?
I got up to a lot of things, honestly. I obviously had to work, and then after work, I had a lot of cleaning. I got a lot of cleaning done. I somehow was full of hecks and spoons, so I seized the day and I did a bunch of cleaning.
Yeah,
Call
well,
it on it's the perfect day for that, I guess.
yeah, well, cleaning is definitely one of the ways that we celebrate uh, the festivals. At least in my house, that's one of the ways. A big clean out,
Exactly.
get the old energy out, bring in the new energy, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. That's always like one mundane thing that I make witchy.
Yep.
Cleaning is, yeah. It's like both self-care, witchy, and just something that needs to get done, so it's very convenient.
Exactly, because it can be very, um, taking care of yourself and taking care of your space and creating a calm space for yourself can be very magical in and of itself. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it helps us to get stuff done if we think of it like that rather than, oh, this is something that I have to do.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree.
Hi, Rainbow. So nice to see.
And what is Beltane, DH, for a few non-witchy people that we may be around, or
Yes, all
people that
right.
don't celebrate the Wheel of the Year?
Yeah, so Beltane is one of the 8 kind of modern pagan festivals. Um, we we as modern pagans, we're kind of rebuilding a, a system that we have that hasn't been in practice for hundreds and hundreds of years. So most modern pagans have adopted a wheel of the year that has 8 major holidays. So you can see here, we start the year with Samhain, and then move through Yule, Imbolc, Astara, Beltane, Litha, Lammas, Mabon, and then we start again at Samhain. Um, so we're over here in Beltane, which is kind of the mid-spring festival. Ostara, which happened on the 21st of March, is the first day of spring. So you might also be familiar with these as the solstices and the equinox. So we've got the winter solstice, the spring equinox, the summer solstice, and the autumn equinox.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so the names that a lot of people use, they come from Celtic mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Lammas is more of a anglicized version of Lunasa, which is what I
Yes.
use. But Samhain is probably the most Celtic of all of these names, and no one can pronounce it right the first time. So it is pronounced Samhain. Uh, and And so we've spun around. We're on the other side of the wheel of the year right now. We're getting into summer. This is often seen as kind of like the beginning of summer, the beginning of the hot season. And yeah, today we are celebrating Beltane. Um, and the name Beltane, again, it's a Gaelic, Old Celtic word. The part that says bell means like bright or shining, or um, some people use it as like holy as well. Like, but it basically just means bright. And Tane or Tanya is fire, so it's a bright fire, and
Mm-hmm.
that's how most people celebrate the Wheel of the Year. Is with feasting. We do a lot of feasting every time, but Beltane especially, we build bonfires, and there's a lot of traditions around that. Obviously, we are modern people living in modern cities. I live in an eighth floor condo. I can't build a bonfire. Um,
Really?
no, shockingly, I cannot. I do not have the ability to build a bonfire. Never, never mind multiple bonfires. One one tradition that was quite common in Scotland was to build two bonfires, and then you would drive your cattle and your livestock between them in order to bless them for the coming year. So, give them health, give them fertility, give them that uh, extra prosperity. So one thing that I've done in the past is I've lit two candles and then driven my cats between the two candles, very carefully, of course, uh, in order to bless them for the coming year, because we do what we
Mm-hmm.
can. But
Yes.
Beltane is very much associated with fire, and
Mm-hmm.
often all the hearth fires, which would be kept going throughout the year, are doused and then relit from the Beltane bonfires. Um, and in addition, people would run around the bonfires, and that would mean a certain thing. In some places, if you jumped over a bonfire with someone that you were interested in, that meant that you were engaged. Different things like that. So the bonfires kind of represented um, just light and success and prosperity and growth for the coming season. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's what we're celebrating today. Is the wheel keeps turning, and we are turning towards the heat and the busyness of summer and autumn, and really just kind of ramping up for that season.
Yes. Have you ever danced around a maypole?
I have never danced around a maypole.
Oh, really?
No, I
Because
haven't done
that's
that one.
that's the one, I guess, like Beltane celebration that I attended like as a community in my city a few years ago, pre-pandemic, obviously.
Yeah.
Like there was a get together and people set up a maypole and we all danced around it. So for those that don't know what a maypole is, it's basically just a tall pole that's planted into the ground, and on the top of it are tied many ribbons. And then people will basically jump, run, walk around it in circles while passing over and under other people's arms so
Hmm.
that the ribbons get weaved around the pole. And it's a celebration to, um, represent the wheel of the year so that, you know, the time that keeps turning and everything, but it's also full of energy, gets you warmed up when it's usually not that warm still.
Hmm.
So it's a really fun thing to do.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very common in England, especially where the
Hmm.
celebration is often called May Day.
Yes.
It's because it usually falls on the 1st of May. The thing about all these, you can see in my book that I have March 20th, February 2nd, December 1st. These dates actually change on a yearly basis because just they have to do with the position of the sun, and that doesn't always line up with the Gregorian calendar. But May
Hmm.
Day, 1st of May, it's it's about youth and joy and movement. And yeah, the maypole is definitely a big part of that for some communities. Thanks for reminding me.
Of course. I just wondered about it because yeah, that's one of the celebrations that I did, and
Yeah,
yeah.
it's it
It's
seems
really fun.
it seems really fun. Like I know that some are quite elaborate, and the pattern of the dance, like who goes over and who goes under, it's very specific so that the ribbons get weaved in a certain way, and it can be, it's like a big thing. Like a lot of people practice all year so that they can do it correctly. um, it's really interesting.
That's crazy because I've never heard of it as like as how to say an elaborate thing,
A
but
choreographed thing, yeah. I think it
yeah.
depends on the community. um, it's one of these things where if it's something that's been going on in the community for hundreds and hundreds of years, like everybody knows the dance already.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't as much practice that needs to go into it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. So yeah, did you want to, Moon, go ahead and maybe do a little bit of background on yourself? We've kind of talked a little bit about modern paganism, but I'd love to hear from you a little bit about your background and your practice.
Yes. So basically, my practice comes from all the way to my teenage years. It actually comes a lot from tarot, that we're gonna do tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was a teenager, I got really into astrology and into tarot specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And I always also had that like feeling of wanting to believe in something other than just, the atheistic belief of
Mm-hmm.
we're just a bunch of like flesh animated by the electrical signals that our brains give us.
Mm-hmm. I get that.
So yeah, and like the growing up in Quebec, I was really like surrounded by Catholic people because it's the predominant religion here. And that's not something that suited me at all. So I kind of like grew up already like looking for something that was Catholicism that I could believe in. And then astrology came in and tarot came in, and I started like scratching at that idea of um, there may not be something like solid fate, like, like how some people really think of it as a terminal thing where like everything is decided for you, but there's like some energies influencing you. There's like something bigger than you, basically. So, like in astrology, it would be the planets influencing you, and then in tarot, it would be like, the energies, life. There's something set out for you,
Mm-hmm.
and the introspection aspect of it. And these two things kind of like led me into paganism eventually. And I read a bit on it at first, and what I stumbled upon was Wicca,
Mm-hmm.
which to me was very much too much like an organized religion still.
Yeah.
So, um, like the fact that there was a god and a goddess and a bunch of rituals, and that you had to be initiated into like a coven. That's what I read about a lot about at first.
Mm-hmm.
And that was still something that was like, that's not for me. So I kind of let it go, and for years I didn't even think about it. I was just, really into astrology and into tarot. And then in college, I was in a random political science class,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw a girl with a pentacle necklace. And I was like, hey, I really like your necklace. Are you pagan by any chance? And she was like, oh, yeah. And that kind of like reignited the flame that I like the interest that I had. And that's kind of when I learned that there was more than just Wicca in paganism.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that's kind of what started everything. And then I ran it. Like there was a witchy coffee evening in my hometown that I
Mm-hmm.
would attend once in a while. So that's where I met like my current coven sisters. Um, and the rest is history.
That's awesome.
Yeah. In my personal practice, I really look at um, the divine feminine mostly. I've never like worked with like really masculine energies, because that's kind of what put me off Catholicism in the first place.
Yeah.
And many other like patriarchal and man-led religions, I would say.
Mhm.
Uh, so
Okay.
that's kind of like my focus. And it says, "Boys are stinky, smash them." Yes.
Smash the
Hmm.
patriarchy. Hex the patriarchy.
Exactly, exactly. Hex them. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of my focus, and I really enjoy divination as well. So like tarot is something that I love doing. I also love dabbling into using like other tools like pendulums,
Mhm.
crystals, crying. Um, yeah.
That's so
What
cool.
about you?
What about me?
Because yes, because you have much more experience than I do, so I'm curious about how it all happened, the
Well,
inception
all
of
right.
paganism and DH.
Okay. I'll tell you a story, and
Hmm.
this story might seem a little bit strange to some people, especially because I tend to be not that vocal about my first forays into paganism because it sounds weird even to me.
Hmm.
But like you, I grew up very like you grew up surrounded by Catholicism. I also grew up surrounded by Catholicism. Um, I was very active in my church, and I even went to Bible camp. So
Hmm.
I I went to Bible camp from the age of 7 through 16 every summer, and the summer that I was 13, I was there at the camp, and we were having Vespers, which was our evening prayer. So we were in
Hmm.
the chapel, which is actually it's not a building; it's a bunch of benches outside, and there's like a split rail fence around the benches. And so we were lined up in the benches here, and then the person leading the song was up here, and then there was the fence around.
Hmm.
And so we were singing something. It was probably like one of those silly camp songs, like "I Don't Want to Be a Sheep" or something like that. But everyone was singing and just making a joyful noise. And I looked up and I saw a woman sitting on the split rail fence. And she was kind of like grooving to the music and kicking her feet and just really enjoying that energy. And
Hmm.
I knew that nobody else saw her. And I also knew at the same time that there was a man down in the woods, just outside of the chapel, who was kind of totally impatient with the situation and like kicking rocks and being like, friggin' done yet already? Like, what is taking so long? And I knew all of this in an instant. And then the
Hmm.
moment was kind of over, but I was still full of this feeling like something had happened. So I took this feeling with me, and I was trying to reconcile this vision with um, my Catholic upbringing. And actually, at that point, my great grandmother gave me a comic book about the life of Saint Francis of Assisi, and I love this comic book. I might bring it out later to show you guys. I still have it. It is ancient. It's falling apart now. Um, because I've had it all these years. But in it, St. Francis of Assisi travels to Jerusalem when it was controlled by the Muslims. And the Muslims stopped him and said, "You can't come in." And he said, "Well, my God is your God." And what he meant was that they both worship Allah, like the Judeo Christian Allah, God, Jehovah is the same deity. But at the time, I was like, okay, so maybe like all deities are the facet of one deity. And that's what kicked me off into like this exploration of paganism at the time. So I was 13, I was 14 around there. And I had this idea that like, okay, I believe in God, but to me God looks like this woman that I saw sitting on the rail and
Hmm.
enjoying the music. So this was when I was 13. I'm 36 now. So it's
Wow.
been 23 years, and it's been a constant journey since then to just kind of explore all different facets of non-traditional religions. I started off as so many of us in the late '90s, early 2000s did with, Silver Raven Wolf and Wicca. But like you, I found it a little bit too hierarchical, and also I found it a little bit too women focused because I didn't realize at the time that I was struggling with gender, but I was struggling with gender at
Yeah.
the time. So I've never been completely comfortable in women only spaces. And of course, I didn't
Mhm.
realize why until years and years later because, again, I was 13. Um, but I just started reading everything I could get my hands on about Wicca and paganism. And some of the formative books for me were Scott Cunningham's Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner and Drawing Down the Moon, Margot Adler, which is it was outdated when I read it. It was about neo-pagan movements in the United States in the 70s and 80s,
Mhm.
and it wasn't a particularly esoteric book. It was more of just like an anthology or a directory of these are the different groups and this is what they believe in and this is how they practice. But it gave me a jumping off point. Um, so I've been everywhere. I've seen everything. Witch
I
Fox
love that.
from its
Yes.
inception to its sad demise. I was on Witch Fox trying to find community, trying to figure out like a what I was in terms of religion, b who the
Mhm.
woman was because I realized fairly quickly that it was not the Judeo-Christian God that I thought it
Mhm.
was, just appearing to me as a woman. Um, and for the longest time, I just called her the Great Lady. And by the longest time, I mean until about 2 years ago. So
Oh,
we're talking like
really?
20 years, yeah. 20 years, I had no idea who she was. And I assume she was like a minor deity, maybe a genius loci, which is like a spirit of place. So like, was it the spirit of that particular lake that the chapel was next to, or something like that? That was my train of thought. Anyways, so back to my progression is I went through Wicca, I went through eclecticism, whatever. Um,
Yes.
I explored Norse paganism. Um, I was really heavily into Celtic Reconstructionism for a long
Mhm.
time, which is, if you're not familiar, Celtic Reconstructionism is a brand of paganism that attempts to reconstruct as faithfully as possible the pre Roman Celtic religions.
Yeah.
So, but it's very strict, and everything you do must have historical basis. There is very little room for personal gnosis, which
Mhm.
my vision is personal gnosis. It wasn't shared by anyone. It wasn't um, written about in historical texts. Like it's very much a personal thing to me. So I was in there for a very long time, but I found that it was too restrictive for me to really
Mhm.
practice. So I moved away from Celtic Reconstructionism, and uh, along the way, I actually got a university degree in Celtic studies. So I studied for 4 years. I learned Scottish Gaelic, I learned Welsh, I studied myths and everything like that. So my practice now, at the end of this 23 years, um, is very much based on the folklore of the pre-Roman Britons. So
Mhm.
not Anglo-Saxon white people, but the Celtic people who lived there before the Anglo-Saxons came in.
Mhm.
So we're talking the Welsh people, we're talking Cornish, we're talking King Arthur's people before the Anglo-Saxons. Um, and what I do is I look at folklore, I look at stories, I look at what has survived all these years, and I look at those and I think, okay, so what does this tell me about the worldview of the people who practice this? And
Mhm.
it could be even things like, okay, why do we throw salt over our shoulder when we spill it? Okay, so
Mhm.
that is because we're worried about this, which means that we are concerned about this, which is why we did this. Like that kind of breaking it down. And it's why did people not stand in doorways is a great one. And it was because doorways are a liminal space, so it's a space between two things. Um,
Mhm.
when you're between two things, uh, you're more susceptible to being captured by the fae, the fairy, the fairies, the she, whatever you want to call them. Um, so that's why people don't stand in doorways. So I don't stand in doorways. um,
I remember you mentioning this to me a long time ago.
yeah, yeah, but also like so that tells me that liminality or that feeling of being in between two things is very important, and that's something that I bring into my own practice. And of course, being non-binary, I exist in liminality. I am between two things at all times. So uh, so that is very important to my practice as well. So on a day-to-day basis, what this looks like is uh, not really that noticeable.
Mm-hmm.
Toot says I was captured by a cryptid because I accidentally stood in the doorway. So I'll take it.
Exactly.
I'll take it, and also because I exist in a liminal state. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Toot said earlier that you learned it from a friendly druid dinosaur, talking about your practice.
oh yeah, Freddy drew a dinosaur. Absolutely,
Listen, I would love to learn magic from a druid dinosaur.
right?
That sounds
That would be
like a really good
fantastic.
time. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, any wizened old dinosaur can come and teach me anything. Um, but yeah, I do spells. I do charms. I keep my patron in mind, and I do divination. So, like you, I do a lot of, I work with tarot. I actually came into tarot pretty late in my journey. So, I always think of myself as a beginner, even though I've probably been practicing tarot for at least 10 years. I still think of myself
Mm-hmm.
as a beginner just because I haven't been doing it from the beginning.
Same. I've technically been doing it from the beginning myself, but I still feel like I know nothing,
I know, like, because
honestly.
there's always that feeling like if I have to check the book, then I'm not a pro. Um,
Exactly.
yeah. So actually, this book that I have on screen with me, this is what's called. It's called many different things, but the
Mm-hmm.
earliest term that I heard for it, and this is going back to like early 2000s internet Wicca, is a book of shadows, which is a
Yeah.
term that it's a little bit melodramatic. It's a little bit like early 2000s emo goth, which is why I use it. So this is what I call my Book of Shadows. It's also called a grimoire. It's called a magical book, a book of mirrors. But I basically keep all kinds of notes, references in here, and you'll see me referring to this throughout the night because I have different notes on spell ingredients, charm ingredients. Um, I have notes on the deities that I work with, charms. This is a tarot spread. So this is where I keep all of my witchy pagany stuff
Mm-hmm.
in here. This is a very large tarot spread, as you can see.
Oh wow. Yeah,
So
that
I'll
is
be
a very big one.
yeah, yeah, that's probably the biggest one I have. So you'll probably be seeing me refer to this throughout the night, um, just as we talk about different things. So yeah, my
It's
practice
really
is
gorgeous.
thank you. It's not very full at all. Like I have so much room. It's only about that full.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got all this to fill up, so but I love it. And then I'll just throw in stuff like this is song lyrics from a very witchy song that I love, and then
Mm-hmm.
just random art and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I I do charms, I do spells, I do potions, I do tarot, and I do prayers. And yeah, that's about it. I'm sure people will have other questions that I hope I can answer because I know a little bit about many things.
Yes, and that's a good point that you mentioned that what else I guess you do in your practice, because I only mentioned divination, but I do also do like a lot of prayer and for me prayer is not necessarily like I guess asking a deity for something. It's also very much like talking to them, confiding in them. So I have I guess a more loose understanding. It's more like a discussion with the divine, more than I suppose
Yeah, absolutely. You're
a
not
prayer
doing
like we see it.
yeah,
Hmm?
you're not doing our Heavenly Father in outdated
Exactly.
language here. Yeah. No,
Exactly.
I'm the same way. when I pray, it's sometimes it's a little more formulaic, a little more of a ritual thing just to get myself
Mm-hmm.
into the mood, into the right mind frame. But when I do pray, it's more just talking to in a conversation, and I rarely ask for things,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's more of a thank you for the things I already have. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one thing that I like is kind of important to my practice. I've never dared to do a potion, to be honest. I would be so worried to ingest anything that I create that's not food, straight up food.
So
So I admire for that.
when I say potion, I usually
Mm-hmm.
just mean a cup of tea.
Okay.
A cup of
Okay,
tea made with intent and made with certain ingredients.
that
Um,
makes sense.
I do not recommend that anyone use non-food ingredients on anything that's going to go into your body. I do not recommend that you immerse crystals in water without doing a
Oh
lot of
yes.
research ahead of time. Um, but things like a cup of tea, a lot of people swear by chamomile to get sleep.
Yes.
Absolutely, a cup of
I love
chamomile
chamomile.
tea, you can say that that's a potion. You
I
say,
mean,
you know, a few
technically it
words.
is, isn't it?
Exactly. You say a few words of intent over the tea bag, let it rip. You've got a potion for sleep right there.
Bless the tea bag.
Yeah. Bless this
Yeah.
thy holy tea bag. Um,
Yes.
Vincent has requested love potion number 99999. That's actually a diet A&W root beer from the fridge. That's what that potion is.
If you serve it to a certain cryptid in your house, I'm sure they will fall in love over all over with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh heck. And speaking of, by the way, you were mentioning that
Mhm.
you feel like you don't know anything about tarot.
Yeah.
But I know that you were going to present the concept of tarot
I
today
am.
for us.
Yes. Yes, I
So
am.
would would you
Before we
like
get
to lay your knowledge on us?
before we get into that, does
Mhm.
anybody watching have any questions for us about just general witchy, pagany things? Something that's come up in our conversation um, that you might be curious about or want a little more information on? I'm sure between the two of us, we can either give you an answer or direct you in the direction of an answer. Um,
Very true. To just sent in my chat, and I see that in yours too. What's the stereotype or myth that bothers you most?
okay, interesting question for sure. Because a few things immediately jump to mind. Moon, do you have anything that
The
pops
first
into your
one
head?
that comes to mind is the idea or well the myth and the stereotype all in one that pagans and witches are necessarily evil
Yes.
and that we're necessarily Satanists as well.
Hmm.
Because, of course, not all Satanists are evil in the same way that not that pagan people and witches are not evil.
Hmm.
But Satanism is also a different thing than paganism and witchcraft and Wicca are,
Hmm.
right? So it kind of bothers me a lot when people, all clump them together like all witches are evil and are worshipping Satan. And it's like, no,
Absolutely.
that's not the case.
Yeah.
I would even say that most witches, most pagans, are very adverse to causing harm to other people in any way, shape, or form. So we really just like to do spells to help us in our community. And most people, of course, not everyone, but
Yeah.
that's, I would say, the stereotype that bums me out the most.
Hmm.
What about you?
And I think that brings up an interesting point that we haven't really made quite yet. Sorry, give me one second. That brings up an interesting point that we haven't really made quite yet, and that is that we've been talking about witchcraft and paganism, but those are two very different things.
Mhm.
So paganism is a religion. It's or a collection of religions. It's a genre of religions. Whereas witchcraft or witchy stuff is a practice. So you can. So I am a traditional British pagan, and
Mm-hmm.
I practice witchcraft. You could be a Catholic and practice witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
You could be a Buddhist and practice witchcraft. So they're not one and the same. But the and like you said, not everyone who is pagan is evil. Not everyone who practices witchy stuff is evil. And the idea of Satan in general is a totally Judeo-Christian thing. So most
Mm-hmm.
people who believe in paganism don't believe that Satan exists at all. So it's really hard to worship something that you don't believe in. Um,
That's a really good point.
so my biggest stereotype and slash myth that bothers me. Everybody listen carefully. The druids the druids did not build Stonehenge.
Oh, I never heard of that one actually.
Stonehenge was built like hundreds of years before the druids existed. So the druids probably used it as a ritual area, but they did not build it. It says no, they did. There was a song and everything. Okay, so the druids probably used it because they came across this huge stone circle and went, "Oh man, this is awesome! People probably worship here," and then decided to worship there, but they didn't build it. So uh, that's my biggest thing. And also, the whole concept of druid is this is getting like really into the Celtic studies aspect of things, and this is one of the reasons that I stepped away from Celtic Reconstructionism, is because I was starting to like nitpick everything. But
Mhm.
druids are considered to be kind of the religious class of the ancient Celts in general. Um,
Mhm.
we only have evidence for druids existing on the continent in the continental Celts. We don't have evidence of druids in Ireland or Scotland. So some people say that that means that they weren't there. Some people says, well, it's the same culture, so obviously they were there. So the way that people use the term druid now, it's more of a modern um, Celtic Twilight reconstruction than a historical construction, which is
I
fine.
see.
Um, the Celtic Twilight was a literary movement spearheaded by people like Yeats in the 19th century to like say, oh man, the Celts are dying out and they were such an amazing, beautiful people, and we have to try and, you know, preserve their legacy. And then they just kind of made up a whole bunch of stuff and said that it was Celtic. So
Oh gosh.
a lot of the like romantic Celtic tales are from this time. So which a lot of people use that as the basis for their practice, which is totally fine and totally valid. And then other people are like, well, that's not totally fine and that's not totally valid because it's not historically accurate or whatever. So, welcome to the Celtic paganism drama and the Celtic paganism tea that's going on right now.
I see. I didn't know that there was like I guess a difference between the Twilight era and the actual Reconstructionist
Oh, yes.
historical one. That's so
Yes.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. The when we talk about tarot a little bit, I'll talk a little bit about the Golden Dawn movement. But it
Mhm.
was basically a bunch of writers got together in like a mystical Rotary club and made up a whole bunch of stuff and then said that this was all, you know, fact and that this was magical tradition that's been carried on for thousands and thousands of years, which it could be. I could be just saying that they made it all up, but there's no evidence that they didn't.
Yeah.
But it was writers like Yeats and Arthur Conan Doyle and people like that. So it's definitely a really interesting um, group, and they've really formed a lot of the modern pagan practice and a lot of the modern pagan kind of archetypes and stuff. It's really so if you ever looking for an internet rabbit hole, the Golden Dawn movement is definitely a good one.
Perfect. I'm writing that down in my head, taking mental note of that.
Yeah.
Toot asked in my chat as well, what are your feelings on Braveheart?
10 out of 10, no notes, perfectly historically accurate.
Really?
No, no, not at all. 0 out of
I
10. In no way
I
historically
actually
accurate.
I actually do not know anything about Braveheart, so I have to take your
Okay.
word for it.
So, no, the movie is the movie is just it takes a story and
Mm-hmm.
a story of stuff that actually happened, and then it makes up a whole relationship and a whole other it took historical characters and made them do the exact opposite of the things that they did in history.
Oh God.
um and yeah, it's bad. Like William Wallace, who is Mel Gibson, who's supposed to be like fighting for Scotland, he actually fought for the English. And Robert the Bruce, who in the movie fights for the English, actually fought for Scotland. And um, yeah, it's a mess. It is not a good movie at all. Like I'm sure it could be enjoyable if you know absolutely none of the context, but it's a terribly historically inaccurate movie. Yeah, Sage says it bad. Yeah, it bad.
That sums it up.
Oh man.
Yeah, it reminds me as well of I guess like more portrayals of paganism and witchcraft. Have you seen Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the new one?
I haven't seen the new one. I'm very interested, but I haven't
Oh
seen it.
Lord, it is a trip.
I've heard it's dark.
A trip and a half. First of all, like the prominent, like I guess theme of it is
Mhm.
Satanism and in
Yeah.
the evil branch, of course.
Uh-huh.
Um, so it was interesting. And then it turned very much like a teenage romance sitcom kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, so that was a bit less. But then in the later seasons, they introduced neo-pagans, like not
Okay.
just satanic witches,
Mhm.
and the way they were portrayed was oh just fantastic.
Oh, you
They
sound
were
so
very
good.
much presented like I guess very not sane people
Yeah,
doing not sane things, and obviously their point was to present the satanic witches as like the better ones in that context. So
that's so odd.
yeah,
Anyway. Um.
Riverdale like yes, to exactly Riverdale like.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I might still give it a watch. Just
Yeah, like
because.
it's good for what it is.
Mhm.
For what it isn't, yeah,
I know it's like it. The representation that we want isn't always there.
exactly. Like for what it is, if you know like nothing about like Satanism or witchcraft or type neo-paganism, like it's a good watch if you like that type of like Riverdale like shows.
Mhm.
But yeah, for me, I stopped watching after a bit because I was like, yes. Mm-mm-mm.
Alright. Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to remind everyone to hydrate. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, take a
I
little sip sip.
I will actually step away from my PC to refill my water, but I'm
Okay.
still with you guys.
All right. I shall entertain your chat while you're gone.
Yes,
So,
it
chat,
will
any
be
other Celtic stereotypes that you wish me to myth bust for you right now? Because apparently that's what we're doing today.
redheads.
Redheads,
Yes.
they do have souls. I can tell you that. And yeah, they are genetically more likely to happen in Irish populations. I have a request from Toot to talk about St. Patrick. So,
Oh yeah.
St. Patrick was not Irish. St. Patrick was born in southern Britain. He was a Briton, which was, and he was kidnapped and taken as a slave to Ireland as a youth. Um,
Oh, I didn't know that bit.
yeah, no, he was taken to Ireland as a slave in his youth, and at that time Ireland was predominantly Christian, because Saint Columba had already gotten there and done most of the converting. But St. Patrick eventually escaped, returned to Britain, and then grew up and decided that he wanted to return to Ireland as a missionary. Except, like I said, Columcille already got there, and St. Patrick really didn't do much. But for some reason, he's gotten all of the glory when Columcille did most of the conversion. Um, and it's actually really interesting because you can see the progression of Christianity through Ireland and Scotland. So it kind of came up from France and then turned sideways, went up through Ireland, came over, went through Scotland, and then came down into Britain. And you can actually see this by place names. So places started to be called the Church of St. Bridget or the Church of Columcille or the Church of whatever as Christianity progressed. And you can see this in the place name Kill. So any like Kilbride is the Church of St. Bridget. It's Kill means church. So you can see the churches spreading through the place names, which is really interesting. But like I said, Columcille or St. Columba had already did most of the work. Just shout out to Chell in my chat. Welcome, welcome. St. Patrick was indeed an asshole, and yeah, he gets all the glory and all of the green beer when really it should be St. Columba. But
All missionaries are,
yeah,
indeed.
so that's my quick take, my quick little thing on why St. Patrick was a Briton. And I was friends with those people in college who would wander around campus on St. Patrick's Day wearing large T-shirts that said St. Patrick was a Briton, with the Welsh flag on them.
That's amazing.
Chell says she has some strong feelings about the colonization of Ireland. Yes, if you missed the earlier part of the stream, I have some strong feelings about many aspects of Celtic history and paganism. And yeah. So we're just doing a little quick Q&A before we get into the tarot reading. So if you do have any questions about witchcraft and paganism in general, absolutely ask those in the chat. If anyone else just showed up, we're doing a quick recap. Moon is eclectic-ish, Wicca-ish.
Hmm?
I
Yes,
yeah,
eclectic.
eclectic,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah.
Eclectic, mostly focused on tarot and divination, and I think you're doing a little bit of goddess work at the as
Yes.
well. And my background is traditional British witchcraft and folklore. So if you have any questions about that kind of stuff, Sage says
Yes.
that they have questions, but they're all tarot related.
I'm excited to hear about your questions, Sage.
Yeah. All right, so
And welcome around to Kiss It Better as well. But yes, questions here. I've been an Irish witch for 25 years, just here to hang.
Yes,
Oh, that's
because we are
lovely.
the same person. So.
Oh my god.
No, we
Honestly,
met a little while ago, and we just every time I say something, they're like, "Oh, me too." It's pretty funny.
that's lovely.
Yeah. All right. So shall we move into the tarot portion of the evening?
Definitely. I'm so ready.
Okay. All right. So, tarot. That's why we're here today. Torah is Fridays. Listen. So tarot, like we've kind of mentioned, it's a divinatory system. It's falls under cartomancy, which is divination through cards. The earliest kind of mentions of it are in like the 15th-ish century, in Italy and France, when it was actually a card game. You've heard of Pinochle and other card games that don't use the traditional playing card deck that we're familiar with. So tarot was just it was a playing card game like that. So it would be kind of like Skippo today. Yeah, Skippo or Uno, but in Italy in the 15th century.
I
Um,
love it.
yeah. So over the years, however, it's kind of gotten this reputation, or it's shifted away from its original origins as being a card game and into a divinatory tool. Uh, so this is probably around the 17th century. Um, in Italy, we have the advent of divination through tarot cards, and Moon and I are both going to give you kind of like an introduction to the decks that we have. But today, there are kind of two main systems of tarot, and then you also have oracle decks. And I think Moon's going to speak a little bit about oracle decks in a minute.
Yeah.
But right now we have the Rider-Waite-Smith, which is probably what everybody thinks of when they think of a tarot deck. I have one here actually, so this is kind of the art style that most people associate with the tarot deck, because this is the Rider-Waite-Smith. It was published in 1909 by Rider, Waite, and a lady named Smith. And again, this is part of that golden dawn that I was talking about before. The other tarot system is the Marseille tarot, which it's similar in that it has the four suits and then the major arcana, but what's in the major arcana changes. The order of the cards in the major arcana changes, and then the suits, instead of having artwork for each card, it's more like pips. And pips are what you would be familiar with playing cards, where it just has, the 5 of clubs has a 5 and then 5 clubs. So those 5 clubs are pips. So a tarot deck is comprised of 78 cards. I always have to check my math on that one. 78 cards. There's 22 major arcana, and then the minor arcana. So major arcana, here's one. This is the Chariot. It is the 7th card. So there's 22 of these. They all have a number and then a title. Then there are 4 suits. Each suit is numbered 1 to 10, and then there's the Page, Knight, Queen, King, and Ace. Well, Ace is 1. Chelsea says they haven't seen a Rider-Waite deck in years. Yeah, I don't use this one a whole lot.
Yeah, I also have it, this one. The
Yeah.
traditional one with the traditional imagery.
Yeah, it's nice to have around. Anyway, the suits, they go page. Sometimes the page is called the princess. Sometimes the knight is called the prince. It just depends on who's making the deck. So the 4 suits are pentacles, wands, swords, and cups. And that, of course, changes also depending on the deck. Some people will choose different suits to represent. Each suit represents one of the 4 elements. And some people will choose different things to represent those elements. And then, of course, the names of the suits changes in different languages. I think Moon has
Yes.
calls the wand Styx, I believe.
Oh, that's yes.
Yeah.
And that's in French it would be sticks for sure.
Yeah. So that's the basic structure of the deck. And then every deck is a little bit different. It depends on who writes the deck, who does the art for it. So basically, a tarot reading, what you do is you shuffle the cards in whatever manner you like, and then you draw a certain number of cards. It could be 1, it could be 78, depends on your purpose. and then what order you draw them in and what position they're in. You then read that like a story, to give you kind of the answer and the guidance that you were looking for. And so different people have different purposes for reading, and Moon and I will both talk about that because it varies from reader to reader. I personally find that tarot cards aren't very good at predicting the future, but they're great at telling you what's going on in the present, and helping you make sense of the past. So that's the way that I kind of use the cards to reflect on what's going on in my life and to inform my decisions going forward, but I don't necessarily see it as what's going to happen at 4 o'clock next Tuesday. Okay, I got a question. I got a question from Sage. How do you shuffle your tarot?
Yes.
I don't know a good way to shuffle mine to get a mix of reverse and upright. Okay, so I can show off unless you'd like to. Well, like, why don't we both do it? So I'll show off with this deck. So this is a pocket-sized Rider-Waite, which is my preferred size because it's the size of an actual deck of cards. So I do a traditional bridge shuffle, just like that, and that usually, because I'm breaking it in the middle and then turning it sideways like that. So that usually gets them flipped between upright and not so upright. And if I'm shuffling a new deck, I'll do this several times. I'll also split the deck like this, and then just pick them back up in any order. And if I really, really, really want to mix them up, we do the good old-fashioned go fish shuffle, as I call it, which I'm sure is going to make some people cringe, but it definitely gets them up. Yeah. You can shuffle any which way you want. Whatever's more comfortable for how your cards feel in your hand. And you'll see as we go through. Yes, my mom does shuffle regular cards like this. Well, you'll see as we go through that different cards are different sizes, different weights, and it's just kind of whatever's comfortable in your hands. So Moon, why don't you show us a shuffle?
Yes. So basically, I'm the complete opposite as DH. I like to shuffle very much so that I don't like flex the cards. So I'll usually just hold them loosely like this and mix them like that. And the reason why I feel comfortable doing this is because I really do not incorporate reverse readings into my readings. So I know, Sage, you were saying that you don't know how to shuffle them to get a mix of reverse and upright. So that really doesn't come into account for me, basically. It's just, I mix them up, and even if they come up reversed, so for example, if I was to pick the tower, sorry, that pops out reversed for me, I'll literally turn it upright. Because to me, the reverse meaning of cards doesn't really resonate, I suppose. I just prefer to see the context of the reading and the context of the card with the other cards to see if it's, I guess, in a between quote marks negative way or in a positive light. But yeah, so I tend to shuffle like I was showing, really like just kind of like this. And if it's a new deck, like DH said, I will make little piles just so that, the suits aren't all stuck together and everything, so that I get an even shuffle. And one thing that I really like as well is shuffling until I get a jumper. Or, sometimes the deck doesn't want to give you one, but I do have a lot of decks that like to just yeet a card at me. So for those that are not familiar, um, jumper is when you're shuffling and randomly there's a card or a small quantity of cards that just falls out of the deck. Like as if you were shuffling and by accident you drop one. But a lot of people like to use these cards as the deck forcibly telling you like this is the card you need basically. So that's kind of what I do for shuffling, really. Nothing fancy. But yeah, I do try to um like DH was saying, their cards are pocket size or like regular card format. I don't actually have a singular deck that's that format. All of mine are like long tarot card size, I guess. And so it's a bit more difficult for me to, because I do have kind of small hands. So
Yes,
it's a bit
absolutely.
more difficult to, you know, actually try to do this with them. And I do like prefer to not have them bend. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting about what you say about the reverses, because I do kind of read reverses, but some people read them as this is absolutely, you know, the bad ending. I kind of read them as more of like a this is an important thing. So I just pulled out another one of my decks. This is more of like the actual size. I just absolutely shuffled the reading cards in there about that. Aside. Um, but you can see that like I kind of do the same bridge technique even with the larger cards, but they do hurt a little bit more. Like your hands ache. Okay. So Shell says they shuffle like Moon. They do reverse reading. So I'll cut the deck, turn one half, and then shuffle. Um, and Sage asks, would it matter as much with Oracle decks if I read them reverse or not? That's mainly what I use. So my answer for that, I don't use Oracle decks as much as Moon does. But my answer for that is it's up to you. You can read reversed as the exact opposite of the meaning. You can read reversed as, hey, this is an important card, so you need to pay more attention to it. Or you can just not read them at all. And I think that it really just depends on your personal preference, and what you feel like the cards are telling you on any given day. To get a little bit more esoteric about it, Moon, do you have you want to jump in on
Yes.
that?
So the thing, like, I guess for quick reference for people who may not know the difference between an oracle deck and a tarot deck. Basically, as DH was explaining earlier, tarot decks have a very structured structure. So you have like the minor arcanas, the major arcanas, and the four suits, whereas an oracle deck has no given structure. So it's really based on what the author envisioned for their deck. So every single oracle deck is going to be very different from one another, as opposed to tarot decks that, you know, the art is different, the companion book may be different, but the structure is the same. So here, for example, I have the Goddess Oracle, that's in French actually, and I don't know how many cards it has, but you can see that it has a sizable amount of cards, whereas I have another Oracle deck right here that actually has a much lesser amount of cards, and they're shaped like playing cards. I actually lied. See, I have playing cards shaped ones. um, and you can also see that the art is very, very different. So, you know, sensing the magic. So for example, here, you have the very gorgeous illustrations of goddesses of different traditions and pantheons, whereas here, it is called the Women Runes deck. So you literally have runes that the author created, that are anchored in, feminine energy and traditions, and feminine between quote marks. But yes, so they're very different decks. They have nothing to do with each other. They don't have the same structure at all. So to me, as of about the question for reverse meanings in
Thanks for
Oracle
dropping by,
decks.
Shell. Sorry.
um,
Sorry, Moon.
but no, that's okay. But yes, so I would be hesitant to read reverse meanings if the deck didn't come with one, because I tend to for Oracle decks rely on the companion book much more than tarot decks, I guess. Because it's basically a very personal vision from the author, and so the card may be telling me something, but I may be not seeing the full message, and I like to rely on the author's message a bit more than with tarot decks, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, so if there's no, I guess, reverse meaning in the book, I would be like double less likely to read the reverse meaning than if there is one in the book. But I do think that I have an oracle deck that has a reverse meaning,
Mhm.
but most of them that I have do not. Um, Let me see.
And Shell in my chat was making the same point that take a look at what the author intended for their deck, because that can make a difference in how the cards are meant to function. Really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like that's kind of why I like oracle decks a lot.
Mhm.
Because whereas I like tarot so much, I find that from one deck to another, I connect much less with the companion book. So
Mhm.
I rely much more on my own knowledge and doing some internet research to supplement it if I feel like I'm lacking.
Mhm.
So I feel like Oracle decks can be much more brainless, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, yeah.
Yeah. It's more
Sorry,
about
what?
paint by numbers than a make your own story.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Sage says theirs has reversed. So they were curious. Because I got concerned when I pulled Oliver reading reversed. I've had that happen to me when like every card is reversed and like they're all major cards, and it's kind of like you look at it at first and you're like, okay, this is terrifying. Um,
mm-hmm.
but then when you start to dig into the meanings of it, like it's not, reverse cards aren't always the end of the world. It's like if you get a reading with the Tower and Death and the Nine of Swords, and uh, it's not always the end of the world. You kind of have to like look at it and say like, okay, what are you actually trying to tell me? Like clearly there's a very important message here, or else you wouldn't have given me a small heart attack. So
Yeah, that's very true. But yes, I do have as well, where my nail is pointing at the book,
okay.
um, uh, an oracle deck that has reverse meanings. And like it's interesting that you bring this up because I don't tend to read reverse meanings for tarot, and I've used this deck before and I couldn't remember if it had reverse meanings, so I don't think I used them in for this deck either. Um, but that's more me not reading reverse, then, if you like to follow the author's vision for their deck, I think it's a very personal thing.
Yeah, yeah. Sage is saying that they felt drawn to a lot of Oracle ones, but never tarot. And I'm the exact opposite. I've never really felt drawn to Oracle decks, but I love tarot. Like I would have
That's
so
really
many more
interesting.
decks. Yeah.
Yeah, because basically for me, I usually feel more drawn to the art than the format.
Hmm.
So it doesn't have to do much with the fact that it's tarot or oracle. It has to do everything with, is it a unique art style? Is it calling to me?
Hmm.
So for example, this one was really calling to me because it was about fairies, and fairies may be spooky to some people, but um, like the art was just absolutely stunning,
Yeah, that
and
one's
I couldn't.
gorgeous.
Yeah, like I'll show a few cards, but um, so here, like the artist for this was absolutely like amazing. And it's really interesting because it's for fairies, especially like in many, I guess, neo like tradition, new age, etc. They're all pretty and everything, but this deck really shows them for, the fey folk that they are.
Hmm.
So there are some spooky cards and there are ones that are creepy looking
Oh,
and
that's
everything.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like
So I really like
oh,
that
that's
deck.
gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, decks like that are why I wish that I vibed with Oracle decks, because some of them are just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. And like this one as well is with how I spoke about my practice earlier, you guys can figure it out a bit, but this is basically an oracle deck about all goddesses of so many traditions, and me being a more goddess work oriented person who's
Mhm.
very eclectic, it really calls to me, and it's really one that I love to use. And the companion book is absolutely like perfect. It's available in English as well, so don't be like put off by the fact that mine is in French. But the companion book has basically for each um card, whoops, for each card it has uh, a little like prose poem about the goddess. It tells a bit about her myth, it tells about the meaning of the card, and it gives you a little like ritual that you can practice to get in tune with the energy of the card, with the goddess herself, or with the energy that the goddess inspires. So I thought that was really neat as well.
Yeah, I love that. It's gorgeous, and like it sounds like you get a lot out of working with that deck. Um,
Yes, definitely. For me, I think it's one of the decks that I've used the most. Like there are two tarot decks that I absolutely adore that I've used on like the stream when I did tarot readings last time.
mhm.
So Shadowscapes and the I always forget its name. The Wild Unknown. For to me it's just the rainbow tarot.
Yeah,
Because all the colors are very rainbow. But yeah, these two tarot decks have to be my favorite, and I think this one has to be my favorite oracle deck.
yeah. Well, I think we were both gonna do some deck tours. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
true. I already started on
I know
that.
you already did already start. So, but before we get into that, I'm going to invite a very special guest onto the stream. So, for my community, for Moon's community, there is going to be a snake on the screen in a few minutes. So, if that's not your thing, you can look away. He'll be here for about 5-10 minutes. But I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up. So, if you don't want to see a snake, you don't have to stay. Uh, well, I hope that you come back.
Snake, snake, snake. I want to see the snake. I'm excited for the snake.
I know, I know. So as you can tell tonight, we don't have my usual critter cam. We do have acronym of the day. So if in my chat you can do a hashtag acronym or exclamation point acronym. Sorry, exclamation point AOTD to get our acronym of the day. We can have some fun with that. Otherwise, I usually have a critter cam up, but I don't because I'm using the critter cam for my hands.
Your hands are critters tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, last warning. Here comes the snake.
What a gorgeous bowl!
Yes, this is my boy. This is Pennywise. He is a sub-adult, possibly an adult ball python. His morph is a lesser pastel vanilla het clown. So the het clown, it means that genetically he's carrying the genes for the clown morph, but they're not being expressed in his colors, except that they're making them a little bit light. So you can see that he's not nearly as dark as another ball python would be, even with the lavender and the vanilla and the pastel, the lesser and the vanilla and the pastel. He's not a lavender. So yeah, this is my boy. He does kind of look like a banana pudding. Uh,
He's so cute.
Yeah, he is. You can see where they get their name, ball pythons. They're also called royal pythons because they're so docile and so chill that royalty would wear them as necklaces, basically.
I didn't know that royal pythons and ball pythons are the same.
Yes, they are the same. They're just usually they're called royal pythons when they're in zoos and ball pythons when they're in the hobby. Um,
I see.
yeah. So this is my little boy.
What is his personality like?
He's very chill. He's quite relaxed. He is a daddy's boy. He likes ball pythons. They do like interaction, and they will come seeking interaction. So he'll come and he'll glass cruise. Be careful about moving your hands and try to strike me. He will glass cruise, so like he'll zoom back and forth in front of his enclosure, looking for some interaction with me. But generally,
Oh.
he's quite calm. Um, like you can see, he's not really moving. He's not super scared. If he was super scared right now, his head would be completely gone. But you can see his head over here. Um, he's a bit of a picky eater. He does like to go on hunger strikes. Ball pythons are kind of known for that. Um, so yeah, this is my
I
little.
remember that when you guys first got him, I would get
The
messages
update.
weeks
Yeah.
after weeks of Penny hasn't eaten, Penny is still on hunger strike, and then finally after a few weeks, he has eaten.
Yeah. So I'm just going to show you his little head so you can kind of see. Um, so one feature that ball pythons have is they are pit vipers. So they have these heat pits on their um, jaw, just above his mouth, and that's what he uses to smell the world around him. So his eyesight is about the same as a human, um, but he has a really great sense of smell. So I'm trying to show off his heat pits. Anyway, the other little feature of ball pythons, and this is the ball python equivalent of toe beans, is they have these little tiny lumps on their head. You can see them, the head lumps. And like toe beans, all ball pythons have them, but they don't all react the same way. Henny loves to have his head lumps squished. So you can see he's got little tiny head lumps, and he loves when I give them a squish. Of course, now he's all squirrely, but um, that's one of his favorite things. Is when we're hanging out together, he will come and he'll actually ask me. He'll put his head between my fingers until I give him a couple of little squishes. Yeah, you like little
That's so
squishes?
cute.
Yeah. You gonna chill? No, you're done now. I know I interrupted his chill time. Now he's exploring.
It's so interesting to me, like the proportions
Mhm.
of a ball python compared to like the other snakes,
Yeah, so
because the front of their bodies and their heads are so slim and small
he's so
compared to
skinny up
like
here.
their body.
He's
Yeah.
slumped down here. Yeah, and he's quite heavy. Like he's the heaviest snake we have, but he's also the shortest snake we have. And that's just the way that ball pythons are. These are his crystals now. They he is a chunky noodle.
I love it.
Yeah. So you can see he's starting to get a little bit active. He's a little bit ready to go and play now. He's exploring everything. He's got his heat pits are opening right up. I'm trying to keep him in frame, but
He wants to go.
he wants the crystals.
He definitely does.
You can't
Oh,
knock the crystals
oh.
off my desk.
I
Okay.
would have laughed so much if he just wrapped the if he just wrapped around the crystals.
He is.
I love that for him.
I know, right? He's doing some crystal
Witchy
healing.
Penny. Exactly.
Yeah. These are his children now. He will not let them go.
I love how he just calmed down instantly.
Yeah.
It was like, I'm wrapped around crystals, I'm calm now.
Oh, baby, no, you can't go that way. Oh, no. Can I get a hand? boys.
Yep. Binks is here. I'll get him.
Okay. He's decided he's done with us. Baby, you coming back?
He's like,
All right.
oh,
Yeah. He decided he wanted to wrap around the my yarn bowl. So now he's just chilling here.
he's happy. He's got something to wrap around.
Yeah. The other thing that ball pythons are known for doing is periscoping. I was hoping he would do that for you, but he basically lifts the front of his body directly up and looks like a little periscope. It's absolutely precious.
That sounds precious.
Yeah. I'm just holding him so he doesn't go zooming off.
Zoom.
You're not a zoomy boy. Why are you being a zoomy boy tonight?
Maybe he's camera shy.
Maybe. I woke him up by trying to show off his head lumps. Alright. Penny's going home. So anyone who was watching who
Penny!
goodbye my son. I love you. Squish squish. Squish squish. Squish.
Sage Sanity has called out the destruction.
Yeah, so now I need to like fix my little setup here. Anyone who wasn't watching, the snake is gone.
The snake is gone, everyone. It's safe now. Because Penny is such a dangerous beast with his cute little heat pits. That's difficult to say.
Yes.
Oh, and we got a kitty guest.
Yes, this is Binks.
Oh, Yuna heard. She's also jumping on my desk. Hi, Yin.
This is Binks, my black void.
And this is Yuna, my dilute tortoiseshell kitty.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys could see a little bit of Penny. He's
I'm always down to see a member of your menagerie.
Yeah. He's a good boy. He's the chillest of our he's the chillest of our snakes. So we've got Binks here joining us for a treat. But yeah, Penny's the chillest of our boys. The other boys, like, I honestly would not trust them to be on stream because
are they actual zoomy boys?
Yeah, corn snakes tend to zoom. Like they will shoot out of your hand. In fact, when I went to buy Jenny, our oldest corn snake, I bought him from a PetSmart, which I don't recommend doing, but we bought him from a PetSmart, and the person who was covering the reptile area wasn't a reptile person, so she had to go and get him out of his enclosure, and he suddenly started zooming, and
oh no,
she kind of like freaked out a little bit and dropped him on the ground.
Oh no,
so I had to like chase him through the store before he got lost under something. But yeah, they are very, very zoomy little boys, whereas ball pythons are quite calm and chill, and they move quite slowly in comparison. Like you could see a lot of the time that he was on the desk, I didn't even have my hands on him because I knew he wasn't about to shoot off anywhere. Because even when he does start moving, he moves slow enough for me to get him. Thanks, you done? There's another treat here. There you go, baby. No, don't love on the camera. Eat the treat. Okay, no treats. Alright, thank you for leaving treat crumbs.
Yes, I know the feeling of treat crumbs on your desk.
Yep.
Right in front of the camera. Right, Yuna? She was licking her paw on my bed, and I said her name, and she just looked up like, what?
And we have another handsome son here. This is Gigi. Although he looks exactly the same as Binks from on top.
Oh, we see a white belly. Little paws, little white paws.
Yeah, he didn't feel like being on camera.
Binks it's because you compared him to Binks. How dare.
I know. He's significantly larger than Binks, but if they're not next to each other and I can't see his paws, I do get them mixed up.
Understandably.
No. All right. All right. So we've had a little snack break, a little snake break. I hope everyone
Snake
is
snack.
hydrated. Snake snack. Let's continue with the deck tour. So we've seen the Fey one from you and the
Yes.
Goddess.
Yes.
Are you up to finishing out your collection, or did you want me to do a few?
Would you like to do a few? Because I have
I'll do a few.
another few other. So we might be here for a long time.
That's okay. This is what the people have come to see.
The
Okay,
tarot
so
decks, yes.
yeah, exactly. So I've already shown off my Pocket Rider Waitesmith. It's a pretty basic deck. Everyone has one. I have no elastic bands. I also don't tend to keep. Toot says she came to see Penny. No. I
You
also
can
don't
see Penny
tend to...
all the time too.
Yeah, exactly. That's okay. I don't tend to keep the packaging for my decks. You'll see
Interesting.
that I keep them mostly in bags, and most of the time I don't refer to the books when I'm using them. So maybe that's why I don't vibe as much with Oracle decks. So here's my little Pocket Rider Waitesmith. It is a great size. It's perfectly pocket size, and this is the book that came with it. So I do keep this with it because it's like super teeny, but it's actually got all of the card meanings and everything in here.
I have the same one,
yeah.
but it's a bit bigger because it matches the side of the cards, but
Yeah,
same.
so that's my Rider Waitesmith. I got that one maybe 10 years ago from Amazon, I think. Nothing special. The next deck I'm going to show you, I already showed it a little bit, but this is the bag it comes in. And this is the bag it came with, so I just kept it in there. But this is the first deck that I ever got, actually. And it is the Llewellyn Tarot. Llewellyn, if I'm being proper. And the art is absolutely gorgeous. It is based on Welsh mythology. I don't know how well you can see that. But
Well.
every card is just a beautiful painting, watercolor painting of a different scene from Welsh mythology. And like the hermit is Merlin, which is Merlin. And the lovers is the Dream of Magzen, which is which is a big Welsh folktale part of the Mabinogi. So yeah, and I got this deck probably, I want to say 17 years ago.
Wow.
There's a little witchy store in Halifax, or there was. It has since closed, and I couldn't remember the name of it, and I couldn't find it when I was Googling. But there's a little witchy store, and they had several tarot decks for sale, but they didn't have them all on display. What they had was this huge binder, and you could flip through the binder, and each page had like different examples of the art that was in the different decks, and then you like picked from the binder, and then they went to the back and got it. So I probably 3 different trips to this store before I decided on this one, because I didn't have a tarot deck at the time. This was my very first one that I ever bought. And I've had it all these years. It's absolutely gorgeous. It is a little bit harder to read because it is a bit more focused on the theme than the meanings. So this deck, it's published by Llewellyn, and it's by Anne Marie Ferguson is the artist. But as you can see, it's one of the larger decks that I own, so it's not as comfy on the hands to shuffle. But it's absolutely gorgeous. So this is the Llewellyn deck. Came out in like 2006, something like that. So it was a very new deck when I first ordered it. It does have an accompanying book that is on my shelf that I read through once and have never actually referred to again. So that's the Llewellyn. Then the next decks I'm gonna show these two. So I made this case. It's like a travel case, and it's got a little. So now you can do your reading on here, and it holds 2 decks. Ta-da!
That's gorgeous.
Thank you. If you want the crochet pattern for this, I made it up. So unfortunately, I am of no help. But the 2 decks in here, this one is the Wildwood deck, which this is the pocket version of it again because I just find it a little bit easier to handle. The first card is Death, which I absolutely love. It's called the Journey in this deck. But this is this was a reworking and a re-release of the Greenwood Tarot, which was like a really iconic, hard to find out of print deck. And they reworked the art and then re-released it as the Wildwood. Oh, Sage, you have this one as well? Yeah, it's so pretty. So this is another one that changes up the suits. It's got bows and stones instead of wands and pentacles. But I love the art. I haven't worked with this one a whole lot just because I got it fairly recently and I was kind of in a cauldron season with my tarot reading. But this one is really nice. It's by John Matthews and Mark Ryan, and the extra art was done by Will Worthington. So it was re-released, I think 2017. And yeah, again, this is just the pocket version of it. And
this has really gorgeous art.
It does, yeah. Like I always look at the Death card because I just like to see what they kind of term it as. And this is absolutely gorgeous. It's called The Journey.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and then this is the Ancestor.
Wow.
So, yeah, that would be not the Hermit. I can't remember. That's another reason I don't use this deck a whole lot is because it kind of mixes up a little bit of the major arcana, so you do need the book to read with it. And as we've kind of established, I'm not a read with the book that it came with kind of person.
I see.
So I'll do the other one in here, and then I'll let Moon take a turn because I've still got a few more. So this one I bought specifically because the cover art for the box is an elephant. And this is the Spirit Song Tarot. This is Paulina Cassidy. It was published by Llewellyn again. And it's based on Native American shamanism principles, so I'm not super comfortable using it quite yet. It is very pretty, but I don't entirely vibe with it. But
the art is so dainty and like pastel in colors. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So, and again, this is another pocket-sized one that I just haven't. I'm trying to see if I can find the elephant card that almost always falls out. And like each of the major arcana has a different. So that's justice there reversed. It talks about the animal associated with it and why that animal was chosen for that particular arcana. It's really interesting. Let's see if I can find. The wheel is the octopus. The wheel is another card. So like the Wheel of Fortune and the Nine of Pentacles are the 2 cards that I look at when I look at a new deck, because those 2 cards are very important to me. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's always the Wheel and the Nine of Pentacles, just specifically. Did I put it at the very back of the deck? No. I am looking for strength just because I need to show you guys the beautiful strength card. And I should have pulled it out earlier, but I did not. And yeah, here it is. So this is the reason that I bought this deck. Totally on a whim. 100% just saw this art and had to get it. I'm sure
It's
you
so
can
pretty.
understand why. Yeah. So yeah. So that's Spirit Song and Wildwood, and they live together here because I don't tend to use these too much unless I'm feeling a specific vibe. Exactly, it toot. Any elephant things must be got immediately. All right, Moon, you want to take it?
So I'll actually like to actually asked a bit earlier, like, what is your favorite deck,
Oh
UNDH?
yeah.
And I already like mentioned that a bit earlier when I was talking about like my favorite tarot decks. So I'll show you guys my two favorite ones. These are the ones that I use the most, and then if we want to showcase more, I do have a few more interesting ones
Okay.
that I use less, but that are lovely as well. Um, so the first one I want to show off is the Wild Unknown. I also call it my in my head is just branded as the Rainbow Tarot. Because so many of the cards are like in black and white with some rainbow. So it's really lovely because of that. I also love that it's very much grungy, I guess, in aspect. I'll show you guys what I mean. But yes, it was made by Kim Krantz, and it was published by I do not know who because Harper Elixir. Yes, because I didn't do my homework like DH did. But I absolutely love it. It's got a very, like I was saying, grungy art. So like you see like the pen strokes very much. And you also see like a bunch of flashes of color. Uh, some cards don't have much color at all. And that's like a themed choice, I guess, by the artist. But like for example, here you have a really gorgeous rose. Um, it's very grungy, but you also have like a watercolor type of red in it. It's really lovely.
Yeah, I love the art. Um, the Wild Unknown Animal Oracle is
Hmm.
the only Oracle deck that Toot owns.
Yeah. And so this one is a very gorgeous card as well, the Ten of Cups. So again, very grungy with uh some rainbow. So this is one that I I don't usually go for decks that are like very like focused on, like you said earlier, like it's a bit harder to read because it's so focused on the theme. But this one is one that I absolutely just vibed with. The art style I absolutely love. Oh, here, I'll show you guys the devil. It's a goat.
No.
A literal goat. It's so cute. He's got his hoofs on fire. But yes, I absolutely love this one. I find that like reading it is almost visceral, which is kind of difficult to do like with most themed decks for me, but this one is, it just clicked. So it's one of my favorite ones. And on the complete flip side, my other favorite one is the Shadowscapes Tarot. And its art style is basically the complete opposite. It's very whimsical, very symbolic in like the scenes that it presents. And let me just pull it out. And you'll notice on the complete opposite of DH as well, I'm the kind of person who keeps the boxes and
I
keeps the
was
decks
just
with the
thinking that.
books.
I was
Yeah.
just thinking that. They're like, I've got this janky assortment of like handmade tarot bags, and you're like, here's the box, and here's the ribbon, and
Yeah. Like I usually put them back in their box and put the box away in my bookcase. So I have like a shelf just full of tarot boxes, which I really like. Um, but yes, so this is a very complete opposite. So I'll show you guys like the surrounding the frame of the card is like gilded but in silver. I don't know how you would say that, but it's got a silver frame. And one thing that I really like about this is that the artist is Stephanie Puimunla, and these actually were all oil paintings before she scanned them and like made them, numerized them, digitalized them. So that's really cool. And I was just like browsing her website at some point, and the original oil paintings were available for sale, and I had to like hold back from not buying them. But yeah, it's very like gorgeous. It's so whimsical, very much fairy tale, and everything is like obviously like there was so much time put into all of those drawings and paintings. Gorgeous. So yeah. Like personally, it's interesting to me because you were saying that like when you want to buy a new tarot deck, you look at like the specific cards. But for me, I really tend to look at like the overall deck because I feel like if I just like one or two cards in it, then it's not like so worth it as opposed to like if I like the whole deck really.
Yeah. Well, I will also answer Toot's question. Sorry, Moon, where did you have another one you wanted to do?
Oh no, not yet.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
And these are my two favorite decks. So I'm gonna go with this is actually the most recent deck, and Toot bought it for me, which is very fantastic. So I knit a little case for it. And this one might seem a little bit silly, especially to people who are like serious tarot readers. But it is the Hocus Pocus Tarot. It's the officially licensed tarot deck for the movie Hocus Pocus. The art is all done by an online artist named Drea D, who has illustrated other tarot decks. And it's written, like the book and the cards were designed by Minerva Siegel and Tori Schaefer, who they're tarot people. Like they've created other decks that aren't Disney themed. So it's a really good deck, and I haven't used it a whole lot, but it feels really right to me. And the art is absolutely gorgeous, and Hocus Pocus is so important to me as a person. Oh, sorry, I just forgot. I switched over. There we go. Hocus Pocus is so important to me as a person that this deck just means a lot to me. Like there's Danny, Page of Candles.
Of candles, that's such a cute suit idea.
Yeah. So that would be instead of wands, is candles. That's the King of Candles there. Pumpkins instead of coins or pentacles.
Love it.
Yeah, and then potions. So this is death. It's transformation, and it's the scene where Binks becomes Binks. Yeah. Sorry, the other suits are potions, and there's also Binks. I keep getting distracted because I just love this deck so much. Lightning is the other suit. So lightning is swords and potions is cups. This is one of the most hysterical cards. It is the Hanged Man, and it is ice and the other bully guy in their cages, and I love it. So I haven't done a ton of reading with this deck, so I'm still getting to know it. The cards are still a little bit stiff, but it feels so right to me in my hands. It's so good. I keep it in this bag with a little tiny selenite spear. Just put that right on top there. I'm actually going to leave this out because I might use it for readings later. And then my absolute favorite deck of all time, and again, this is another bag I made. Very similar to your Wild Unknown.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Line Strider from Cielo Thompson. Oh, and the moon is the first card. So it's got that watercolory rainbow line art style. I
Oh yes, I've
love
seen
this.
it around that one.
Yeah. So this deck is the idea behind it is the Line Strider deck, and it plays with that idea of liminality that we mentioned before, where the space in between things. So me, I'm
Mm-hmm.
in between gender, so I live a liminal life. So that's what really spoke to me about this deck, and living in that space between this and that. And the cards themselves, it's in a space between the animal world and the human world, and between color and black and white. It's absolutely gorgeous. And so this is the deck that I use the most. There's the Nine of Pentacles that always comes up for me. uh, it's just beautiful. You can see there's humans, and then there's animals, and uh, it's I love this deck. So yeah, so that's Cielo Thompson. She's done a couple other decks and oracle decks and things like that, but the Line Strider, this one is just my absolute favorite of all time. So yeah, so those are my two favorite decks: is the Line Strider and the Hocus Pocus Disney Tarot. And I'm really excited because the same team that did that Hocus Pocus Tarot did a Disney Villains Tarot.
Ooh.
Yeah, I really want it. So yeah. All right. So Moon, you I see you've got some cards spread out there.
Yes, that was just for decoration, is the
Oh, I
Raider
see.
weight. But I do have a couple more.
Yeah,
I'll
for
pick
sure.
two more. So one that I have that's gonna be a bit similar to the what the Hocus Pocus one is for you,
Mhm,
and the one that's in French, but they also have an English version.
mhm.
I'll show that one first, but it's the Mystical Cats Tarot.
Oh, okay.
And it's absolutely gorgeous, obviously, because it has cats. But I actually haven't like used this one a whole bunch, but I just find the illustrations absolutely like, kitties. Um, so for example, here we have indeed, it's also one that has different like suit names. So
Mhm.
this is the Five of Sea,
Okay.
and there's a little cat that just came out of the sea and it's all wet.
Aw.
Um, and then so yeah, it's like sea, sky, earth, and I believe fire. Yeah. So like I guess the elements are a bit more obvious in this one.
Mhm.
You have little. It's so cute because like all the sea ones are cats swimming. Um, like the cats in fire are like cats with candles or fireplaces.
Mhm.
Um, they're very adorable.
That's
I love
so
that.
precious.
Yes.
I love the art on that.
The strength is really cute. It's adorable.
Oh, go and get me.
So here we have we have the strength here. I don't know what I said the other one was, I forgot. But it's a black cat with little birds.
Oh,
So
that's precious.
yeah, it's a lovely one.
Yeah, I love the art on that.
It's
Do you
gorgeous
find
and
it's hard to find decks in French, or um
no, honestly, like unless you go to an English bookstore, all the decks are in French if you go to a bookstore here because of like
okay.
the province's law.
Yeah.
Like if you want to sell a product, it has to be in French or bilingual.
Okay.
So I think like there's only like Indigo, which for the Americans is the equivalent of chapters, that has like the English ones, which is where I got most of my decks from.
Okay.
But other than that, like French bookstores will have them in French. Um, and yeah, like in the companion book also has like the colored illustrations. So
Mhm.
very cute. And so yeah, it's one that I keep wanting to work with a bit more because of how gorgeous it is, and obviously how much I love cats, but
Yeah, of course.
haven't gotten around to it yet.
I know.
And
So many decks, so little time.
I know exactly. That's what I mean. And the like segue from Ocus Hocus Pocus for
Mhm.
me is when I was a kid and growing up, I was always really into Sakura Card Captor.
Uh-huh.
So an ex-boyfriend of mine got me this game
I
and I
have those
kept it
exact
because
cards.
really?
Yeah, they're up on my shelf next to my card sealing wand. I have the wand too.
They're just so lovely. Like obviously, it's straight from the anime and it's more of a I don't think the purpose of them is exactly to be used as like an oracle deck, right? But they just resonate so much with me that I would love to get to use them like that. And for anyone that's like been into Sakura Captor, it's like the original cards. I believe there is like an extra card that they added to make an even number or something like that.
Mhm.
But I do forget which one it is, to be
Yeah.
clear. But it's lovely. I love the art. It's so nostalgic.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of readings with it. And again, kind of like with the Unknown Tarot, it feels very visceral. Like when you look at the card,
Mhm.
you kind of like instinctively feel what it's trying to tell you.
Yeah.
So that's what I really like it for that, for how nostalgic it is and um
Oh yeah, that's
in
lovely.
tune it is. Yeah. And I love that like it has a little fake book case that it comes with.
Yeah. And I mean, we can. The great thing about divination is that you can use anything for it. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have to be, an officially licensed tarot deck like the ones we've been showing off. You could use a deck of playing cards if you want. A lot of people do that. You could use, your grandmother's recipe box. You could use that as a form of divination. It could just be anything.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. One that I've seen floating around the internet, like a lot, and that I've always wanted to try is book divination. So you
Yes.
literally go to your bookcase, feel for a book that speaks to you, and then you feel for a page and for a line that speaks to you. And that's a way of divination, because it's really just trying to tap into something that's unknown to you consciously by using everyday items, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. And yeah, like it's just I just feel like what you're saying, something that speaks to you, and reading it can be very visceral. And I think that that's a big thing in the tarot reading community, is getting a deck that speaks to you and vibes with you, and some decks just don't. So like no matter
Mm-hmm.
how pretty they are, no matter how much you like the art style, you just can't read with them. And that's okay. In that case, you can keep them as decoration, or you can pass them on to somebody else. Um, and sometimes decks just really, really speak to you, and they have. And some people even say that their decks have different tones. Like some decks are nicer,
Yes.
and some decks are a little bit more strict or bitchy.
Yes. Do you feel that way about some of your decks?
I do, I feel this deck, the uh, Line Strider, I always liken it to um, Dorothy from the Golden Girls. Like, she's kind, but she will tell you it straight, and she won't always be nice about it if it needs to not be a nice message.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this deck, the Mystic Fairy Tarot, which I didn't show off, um, which is one of the few that I have that's still in the box. This one, it's very much the Rose of Rose from Golden Girls, where it's very lovely to you and it will soften every single blow.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm feeling emotionally fragile, this one's a good one. But I like I love working with this line strider just because it has that kind of friend who won't take any shit from you vibe,
Yes.
but also won't lie to you, but also wants to see you well. So,
Mhm.
what about you? Do you find that your decks have like personalities or?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah.
I called my writer Wade Smith the old grumpy grandpa.
Oh,
He's
that's
like
totally mine too.
sarcastic huh?
That's totally mine too. Old grumpy grandpa
Yes.
man.
Yes, and it's so like unlike the your line strider, it will tell it to you straight and be sarcastic about it and make fun of you at the same time, kind of.
Oh no, yeah.
Like it will be very forward and almost sarcastic about it and like, what do you mean you didn't see this coming? Come on. Like kind of vibe. So like I don't tend to use it very much for myself, but strangely enough, if I'm doing readings for other people, it often calls to me.
Okay.
Um, just for like the straightforwardness of it. Sometimes I feel it's very fitting for some people. And then my Shadowscapes, kind of similar to your fairy one, is the one that will kind of sugarcoat everything.
Yeah.
And just wants to like, I guess, cuddle you and wrap you up in blankets and be kind of like reassure
Yeah.
you that even though it's might be a shitty situation, that there will be an end to it and give you tips about how to go with it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then my wild unknown I feel is kind of a good in between.
Hmm.
Like it will be straightforward, but not in like a grumpy grandpa way. Just straightforward, with a touch of hope,
Yeah.
which I feel is very telling of the art style of it being so like grungy and raw, but also have like, all the rainbow or the touch of light that comes with it. So yeah.
Yeah. I find with my Rider Waite, it's grumpy old grandpa, but it's very traditional. And it's very like black and not black and white because there's shades of gray in everything we do in tarot, but it's uh it's very like old fashioned and very
Mm-hmm.
like isn't taking it, it's too old for this. Um,
Yes.
I don't tend to use it unless I'm practicing, um,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes the card meanings are a little bit easier to pick up just from the illustrations without having to refer to the book, um,
Mm-hmm.
which is I want to be that person who can read without the book, but I don't think I'm there yet. I think
Yeah.
in truth, not many people are, but we all
Yeah.
think that we should be. Um, so
It's just so difficult to learn the meaning of 78 cards by a
yeah,
heart
yeah,
and remember how they can like I guess affect each other or like relate to every situation.
yeah,
There's just so much like symbolism that goes into tarot that it can be difficult
yeah, for sure.
to
And
remember everything.
I feel like reading tarot, you're not looking at each card in a vacuum. So if I had a 3 card spread, I'm not looking at like, okay, this card means this and only this. I'm looking at like, okay, what does this card mean in the context of this card, in the context of this card? And all together, they're telling me a story. So even the meaning of a card can change depending on what it's being drawn with or what it's being drawn in relation to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to just it's hard to memorize by rote, um, when you're trying to build those stories and build that information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are there other decks that you'd like to show off?
Um, yeah, I've got 2 more and then I'm done. Uh, I'll just go quickly through these 2. The Mystic Fairy. Um, this one. So this one is a bit of a cautionary tale. This one is don't buy decks from AliExpress because when they come, they will be in Chinese and you will not know what the cards are. So these ones have I have to write in what each of the major arcana. Like you can see that I haven't used this deck
Mm-hmm.
in a long time because it's all still in order. Um, yeah, you can see I had to write in what each of them are.
That's
I
amazing.
actually had this deck before, and I'll show you some of the art from it. I actually had this deck before in an English version, but it got water damaged like so badly that I couldn't use it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really sad about it. And then I found, and it was out of print, and it was really expensive, and I couldn't replace it. And then I found this on AliExpress for super cheap, so I got it without thinking. So I haven't actually used this new version of it yet, but it is a very lovely deck. And the thing I like about this deck is each of the suits tells a story. So the book is written. So like the Ace of Pentacles is the start of the story, and then the story progresses through the suit of Pentacles to the King.
I
So
see.
the story in Pentacles is about a fairy who kind of works hard and builds up, and then loses everything, and then has to work hard to build it up again. So it's very much a lyrical, flowy type tarot.
That's so
Um,
pretty.
it's very
Yeah, I don't
pretty.
actually know of a tarot deck that does that other than this one.
Yeah, like I've never seen that before. So the book, reading the book is really interesting, and I do have the book that goes with this one. Um,
Not
and
in
it almost
Chinese, I hope.
no, the I have the book from the original deck. The book did not come with the Chinese deck.
Mm-hmm.
So I am hoping that I'll get back to using this one. I had to mark all the cards, and then I kind of like put it aside because I didn't want to deal with it anymore. Um, and then the last one is, this is a silly one that I haven't used very much, but it's the cat tarot.
Oh,
Um,
it's so cute.
yeah, and this is again one of the only ones that I still have in the box, but this one's just cute. It's a little bit silly, but the wheel of each card, it just has the yeah, each card, it just has the element, it doesn't have the suit. So we've got justice. Uh,
A cat biting the hand, very good.
yeah. Um, and I think there's the Page of Cups going for the water. So this one is
Ah,
just,
yeah.
it's a little silly one, but I haven't used it very much, but it seems pretty fluffy. Um, I don't know how much I actually will use it. There's the Hermit.
Aw,
But this one's actually
adorable.
kind of surprised because my mom bought it for me, and my mom was not so supportive of the whole witchy pagan thing for like a long time. So to get a tarot deck from her, like, was very surprising. But yeah, no, it's a cute deck. I hope I do get to use it a little bit more, but too many decks, not enough time. There's the Devil. Yeah,
Yes, very good.
yeah, I can see this becoming a favorite deck if I sit down and spend some time with it. I just need to do the sitting down and spending some time with it instead of just picking up one of the decks that I always pick up.
Very
So yeah, that's the
understandable.
Cat Tarot, and that one's by Megan Lynn Cott, and it's a
I love the
relatively new one.
holographic detail
Yeah,
on top
it's
of
the
it too.
hollow on the box. It's cute.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Love the kitties, Toot says. Yes, always. Always love the kitties.
Always. So yeah, so that's all my decks. I have yeah, that's all my decks.
Yes. I have two more
Okay,
that I can show off quickly.
go ahead.
Actually three more, but I'll be really quick about it.
I know, it's just so much fun talking about our decks and
I
showing off the
know.
art, and it's like this is our thing.
Yes. Um, so the Celtic Oracle is actually a gift from VH themselves.
I was like,
They
hey, that
sent
looks
me this.
familiar.
Yes. They sent me this a while ago, and
Oh,
I
ooh,
really love the idea of the cards because there's basically this is an oracle, so you know that explains that I vibe with it more than DH did.
yeah.
And it's so nice because it's like half of the cards are plants and then half of the cards are animal, which is really nice. It's like something that I enjoy that it's kind of devoid of humans, I guess. Um, I've yet to work with it a lot, but I really like the art. It's very, I guess, like organic in a way. So I'm really like excited to discover it more. Um, so this is one of the only decks that I don't have in its original box because it's actually in a box of Magic the Gathering cards.
Perfect.
Because yes, I just needed somewhere to put it because the box got damaged and it didn't have like a filler in it, so it was just like the cards that were loose in the
Yeah.
box with the book. So it was just not a good box. But I really like that one. It was actually one of my first tarot decks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the steampunk tarot.
Oh, okay,
So
I
I
think I've
think,
seen that one before.
yeah, I think a lot of people would love that one. Um, so yeah, like the back of it is all like a bunch of Steam Deck elements. All the like humans are dressed in steampunk attire. Um, and you know, very like steampunk-esque materials that are shown. So it's one that I loved for a very long time. I haven't used it,
Yeah.
but it's
Looks like
one of
pretty
the first few
traditional
ones.
imagery too.
Yes, yes, exactly. It was very easy for me to get into because of
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, yeah, and with its Magic the Gathering box. And now this is one that I've always wanted to love, but it's not one that I vibe with, I guess, as much as the other ones, unfortunately. But it's the Witches Tarot.
Mm.
It is published by Llewellyn, and it's illustrated by Mark Evans, and it's very like the back of the deck actually is my profile picture on my personal Instagram because I love
It's
the
pretty.
back of it. Yeah, the back of it is absolutely gorgeous. Some cards are stuck in the box and help. Um, I got it. The Four of Pentacles was stuck in the box.
Oh, maybe that's a message.
Maybe. But yes, the art for the suits is very much like like one thing that I kind of like less about it is that the characters are very realistic.
Mm. Yeah.
So like if you look, that looks like a man, looks like a photo,
Yeah, it's a
and
little too human.
yeah, exactly. um, so that's like one of the things that I'm like, but I do love that like I guess it has more witchy imagery. Um, so maybe I'll spend some time with it sometime, but
Yeah.
it's not my favorite for now.
Yeah.
I do love like what it stands for.
Meta vibe.
Yes. So yeah, that was the last of my tarot cards. And I see that our friend Yasha has made it into chat and
Oh yeah.
will request a tarot reading eventually.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Well, we have been doing a lot of talking about our decks. I think
Yeah,
we should take a quick hydration break and then uh, open it up to see if anybody wants a reading.
very true. Yes. Everyone get some hydration.
Yep, do a stretch, crack that back, crack that neck.
Can you actually crack your neck? I
No,
can't.
not on command. Sometimes it cracks and then I feel like an old man.
I actually can't do it. Like my back cracks a lot. My neck not really. And like I get very disturbed by the fact my brother can do it on command. Like he just takes his head between his hands and does the thing, and it goes like clock, you know.
Oh no. Oh no.
Mm-mm-mm. I'm all hydrated.
Your neck is popcorn.
That's a way to go about it. Mm-mm-mm. So, Yasha, I know you've probably just arrived not too long ago, but is there a tarot deck that you'd like to get your reading done with by? And if so, which one? Or is it choix du chef? Chef's choice? Let me know when you can. And in the DH's chat, does anyone want a reading?
Yes, if there's anyone who has a question, you want a reading.
I'll get started because we can still take questions for like anything witchy,
Yep.
or also like if you're doing spell work, if you like advice on that stuff.
Yes. All right. Sage would like a reading. What do you need help with tonight, my friend? I realized earlier that shuffling my cards was getting picked up by my mic, so I do apologize for shuffling over you earlier, Moon.
Oh, don't worry at all. I didn't even hear it.
It's just with these cards, it just kind of I want to be touching them and playing with them. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And you can see like they're quite flexible because I've used them so much, so they're kind of getting soft around the edges. I like my stuff to be well used. I have learned that if I bridge, I have to bridge back the other way, so I don't curve. Okay, so Sage has a question. Guidance on self-love. Not sure how to put it. Okay, all right. So let's see. I think I'm gonna do a 3-card spread for this one. We're just going to do where you are now, where you want to get to, and kind of the middle step of that. And the middle step will give us advice based on the 2 other parts. So let's think about Sage's question a little bit. Self-love and what we can do. So I like to think about the question, think about the asker. Sometimes it's easier if you know them, sometimes it isn't, and then you can go into it a little bit blind. As I shuffle, see if like Moon said there are any jumpers. No jumpers this time. All right. Cut.
I'm so excited to hear you read. Because last time you got to hear me.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested.
All right. So the first card I pulled, I just cut the deck. So the first card I pulled is where you are now. That's the Ace of Swords. Where you want to get is the 2 of Cups. And then kind of the advice for getting there is the Knight of Cups. So first off, really interesting. Cups is the suit of emotion. And especially the 2 of Cups is kind of the card of love. Love between 2 people. But not necessarily romantic love. It can also be a really deep romance. So what I'm seeing from here, just total top of my head, is right now you're in a spot where you're feeling alone and defensive, and kind of prickly. But you want to get to a spot where you're open to being able to you want to be open to have a relationship like these two cats, to have somebody to headbutt and nuzzle. So let me just take a quick peekaroo. Ace of Swords. So I am referencing my notes a little bit. Yeah. So the Ace of Swords, like I said, it is a little bit of like a prickly martial card, but at the same time, because it is swords, which is the suit of air, it's about mental clarity and things like that. So right now, I'd say you're in a place where you're thinking clearly about this problem. It's something that you realize that there's a problem, and you want to address it head on. And I think that you are on the verge of a breakthrough, um, on the verge of starting something new, starting a new chapter of your life, or even just realizing something about yourself that's going to lead into this more emotional side of yourself. So right now you're kind of up in your head, you're doing the thinky think, and where you want to get to is doing the feely feel. So the Knight of Cups, like I said, I don't usually read a lot of reversals. I usually see it more as like this is an important thing that you need to pay attention to, or if you don't pay attention to it, it could go bad. So the Knight of Cups is a very romantic card. So the Two of Cups is about relationships. The Knight of Cups is specifically about romance, and it's about being charmed and that blush of first love and everything like that. But because it's reversed in this case, I think that it's more of a warning that what you're looking for in this progression from, in this breakthrough to where you can be a person that is ready for love, you can't let that be dependent on the Knight. So this has to be an internal journey. The Knight of Cups, you might have someone in your life who's going to come in and sweep you off your feet, give you that external source of love. But right now, that's not really what you need. What you need is to refill your own cup before you can share it with somebody else, which isn't the most specific advice for how you can go about and do that. I think in this case, it's more about being wary of basing it on somebody outside of yourself, basing it on an outside romantic situation. But I really like this progression for you in terms of self-love, because the Two of Cups it's another card that's really special to me. So I'm really happy that it came up in this position for you, because it means good things in the future. And if you keep the mental clarity that you have right now, avoid hanging your hopes on an external Knight, then you are going to eventually fill your cup to the point where you can share it with somebody else. So that's just a quick little thing. I hope that was a little bit helpful. I don't know if I repeated myself too much.
No, you didn't.
All right, so just to recap, in the first position you had the Ace of Swords. In the second position, which is your future, you had the Two of Cups, and then in the third position, you had the Knight of Cups reversed. So that was your reading, and I hope that was good for you. And if you have any follow-up queries or questions, absolutely let me know.
Yeah, I love that the Two of Cups came out for that specific reading.
Right? That was
It's
really like,
yeah, unless it's like surrounded with like overwhelmingly negative cards, right? Like it's always a positive card.
yeah. Actually,
Like hmm.
I have a story about the Two of Cups.
Yes.
If you guys will forgive me for a moment. I was getting my cards read by a friend of mine who deals a lot with. She's got quite the second sight, and she deals a lot with kind of the other world. And she kept pulling the Two of Cups for me. it was in an Arthurian deck, and the Two of Cups was Bedouir and Kay, the two knights of the Round Table, who are like the broiest of bros. So she felt that it was telling me that I kind of had a bro on the other side who was helping me and who was guiding me. And it wasn't a romantic relationship, but it was like a very deep, loving relationship. So that's what I always think of when I see the Two of Cups. Is not necessarily, I don't jump right to romance. I think of that very deep love connection that doesn't have anything to do with love. That doesn't have anything to do with romance.
Yes.
Well, Sage, I'm really glad that it was helpful and that it reaffirmed like what you were thinking. That's what I find great about tarot, is it kind of focuses your thoughts and makes them calm down and think of things in a different way. That can be very helpful sometimes. So, anyway.
Yes. And I'm gonna piggyback right on and ask Yasha if they're around. That's gonna be your turn since you ask a question in my chat. I think for you, Yasha, the Wild Unknown will be perfect because, you know, Yasha loves that grungy stuff. So let me just pull everything out. So I'm also going to go for a 3-card reading. The first one is going to be mostly where you are right now in regards to your artistic career. Second step is going to be what steps you can take to achieve the future state of your artistic career. And then the third one is going to be the future state of your artistic career. So very linear, simple, but I think it could be insightful to know where you stand right now and what steps you need to take for that's a bit too many cards. And one way that I like to do my readings is I like to feel for the cards. So I really like to spread them out like this and kind of like use my hands as a dowsing rod in a way. Feel for the tinglies. So
See what's talking to you.
exactly. The Ace of Swords in first position.
Oh, again.
The Daughter of Cups in second position. And the Six of Pentacles in third position. So overall, it looks like it's going to be a literally fruitful condition for you. Basically, the Ace of Swords, as DH was saying earlier, is very much about truth, finding truth and mental clarity. So I feel like right now you're in a state of figuring things out, of I guess like it feels like a shocking truth looking at this card. Because like with the thunder, with the rain coming down, it really feels like something that's shaking your world right now. There, given the cards that follows, there will be a positive outcome, but just know that what you're learning right now may be ground shaking. So yeah, it says also in the booklet that it's a great time to make those decisions you've been putting off. So it's also a card that calls for action. So with this truth, you should definitely be able to take a more um, knowledgeable decision about the future. And then in the Daughter of Cups, a very cute duckling there. um, it's concerning someone who's very emotional and very creative, because obviously cups are related to the element of water, which is all about emotions and creativity. I'll actually just turn them for you so you can see them upright. So cute little duckling with a rainbow. So it's basically saying that you've entered, I guess, a shocking revelation, and by being emotionally vulnerable will come creativity. And then the last one, which is the future state of your artistic career, is in the suit of pentacles, which is also very good for an artistic career, because pentacles often are related to materialistic goods, so money. So when you see like pentacles coming out in an outcome situation, it often means that there will be some financial gains, which is always really good when you're talking about such a situation. Um, but just really quickly, yes, and the six usually like is um a very positive number, because usually 4 is coming to a stalemate, 5 is the struggle after coming to that stalemate, and then 6 is like kind of like the renewal after you've figured out everything. So like I was saying, this card is really representative of prosperity and growth, especially when it comes to the material goods. And so, like the booklet says, the long awaiting fruits are ready for harvesting, bringing more wealth than anticipated. So it's a very positive card, and basically the whole scenario shows a very positive outcome. So it might feel a bit unstable. There's a shocking, groundbreaking situation in your life right now, but and it's kind of like, I guess, pertaining to your artistic situation, it could probably be that you learned something and you feel like you need to change the way that you've been doing things. But by being creative and emotional and vulnerable in your art, you will, be able to achieve that growth, that prosperity that you really desire. So yeah. I think overall it's a very positive reading.
Yeah,
Do you
getting the
have any?
tentacles in that setting is very good.
Mm-hmm. Especially the 6. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah.
It's a bounty. Thank you, Moons. Of course, thank you, Artist, for asking the question. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask. Or if you need
Yes.
to clarify something and whatnot, more than happy to help.
Yes, absolutely. We're here for a little bit longer.
Yes.
If anyone has any other questions?
Can you spare a pentacle or two for a poor elephant? Certainly I can. Here are five pentacles for you.
I just cut my deck and I got the Queen of Pentacles.
Rich.
And like, look at
Here,
that. That's
that's
so cute. Cuddling a bunny. Got the arm tattoo.
amazing.
Oh.
You're the Queen of Pentacles too.
Wouldn't that be great?
Honestly.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Would anyone be interested in a tarot reading? Does anyone have a question about witchcraft, magic, paganism, all the chit chat we've had tonight? All the pentacles, pentacles? Yes, I can't speak. All the pentacles are to be mine. Yes.
In many ducks, they're literally called coins. So
Yes.
yeah. I
Hmm?
usually do a year ahead spread at the beginning of the year for my and I just kind of pull a card for that represents the whole year. And one year I thought long and hard about it, and I decided that my card for the year was going to be the Nine of Pentacles, because it's very much like a rise and grind kind of card for me, where like you get in what you get out, you get out what you put in, and you have to work for stuff and that kind of thing. And that was the vibe I wanted. So that was my card for that year. And then the next year I decided I was going to draw a random card, and that was going to be my card for the year. And I drew the Nine of Pentacles again. And then this year, which was the following year, I was like, I am going to once again randomly draw, and I drew the Ten of Pentacles. So apparently my yearly theme is rise and grind.
That's impressive.
Yep.
Hopefully, after a few years, they stop giving you rise and grind and
I can just enjoy
give you something like sleep and snooze.
Your cards have been lying to you.
Yeah, Toot just pointed out that my cards have been lying to me. Yeah.
There are different kinds of rise and grinds.
Well, Moon, can I do a reading for you while we're waiting?
That's actually what I was gonna ask.
Yeah.
I just am not so sure about what to ask.
Yeah.
Let me think just for a moment, because I was thinking.
I think you're thinking of one too.
Well, there's no topic that comes to mind, and I've been thinking about it for a few minutes.
Mhm.
So, could I ask if your cards have a message that you'd like to convey to me?
Okay, all right. Do you want the Line Strider or the Hocus Pocus deck?
I think I'll go with the Hocus Pocus deck.
Hocus Pocus. Okay.
Give me more witchcraft. More.
Right. So I'm gonna shuffle this one a few times just because it's a little bit more stiff. I haven't used it as much. Like, I can really tell the decks that I use a lot in my hands because I do shuffle them with the bridge technique. So I can tell like how much they're resisting me.
Yes.
All right, so we're thinking of a message from Moon. Message from maybe my bro on the other side to Moon.
The back is so pretty as well.
I know, it's really pretty. And it's not as like ornate as I thought it was gonna be. Just doing an old-fashioned cut. All right. So your first card is Judgment.
Okay.
I'm doing a 3-card draw, by the way.
We've
got the King of Lightning. And lightning in this case is swords. And the 10 of Cups. So first of all, we've got a Major Arcana, and usually when a Major Arcana shows up in a reading, I'm just going to put those a little bit more centered on the screen. So we've got the Judgment, we got the King of Lightning, and we got the 10 of Potions. Usually when a Major Arcana shows up in a reading, that means that that's important and you should pay attention to it. So if you're doing like a big spread that had, this is past, this is present, this is about this specific thing, and a Major Arcana showed up in that, you should be paying more attention to that card. So it's interesting that I got Judgment in this first one. And I mean, Judgment is one of those cards that it pops up and people are like, oh my god, what's wrong? But in this case, it's more about. Well, let me take a look here. So I know judgment can have a softer meaning. I'm just gonna take a quick peek at the rest of my cards here. Okay. Okay, yeah, I can see that. So judgment often means a decision, and that's either a decision that you have to make or one that is being made about you. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the King of Lightning, and in this case, lightning means swords, um, is about clarity of thinking. Um, so, sorry, I had the words in my head and then I promptly forgot them. Yeah, it's clarity of thinking, uh, but it's also it's a slight warning because you can be really clear in what you're thinking, you can be really sure of yourself, but then kind of use that to bully other people. So you kind of have to. I think that's telling you to watch out for that tendency to talk over or to. Um, uh, I would describe it for myself as my autistic sense of justice, uh, kind of taking over,
Mm-hmm.
um, because swords is about the intellect. It's not so much about being kind or being soft or nice to other people, which is why we have the 10 of potions coming up next, which potions in this case being cups. So in this case, the 10 is about coming together, harmony, a large group of people coming together in harmony. So I think in order to achieve that harmony, you have to make a decision not to let your brain not to let your mouth say all of the things that your brain is thinking. I think
Mm-hmm.
that is the general meaning of these three cards in conjunction. And I feel like if you keep these two balanced, the idea of harmony and community that you want here, with the watching your words to make sure what you're saying is being said in the right way, then in that case, you control the narrative, you control the judgment, you control whether this is a forced change or if this is kind of like a rebirth. So I realize that sounds a little bit harsh, but I think it's really just telling you that you have to balance these two things. And in that case, you can be the one that controls the judgment card over here.
I
Does
see.
that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I can
Because,
think of a couple of situations where that applies in my life right now.
yeah. Because, oh, good night, Sage. Have a good one. Thanks so much
Have
for
a good
playing.
night. Happy Beltane, Sage.
Yeah, because the balance of the 10 of potions and the King of Lightning, because this is a very solitary card, the King, is very much a I'm going to act on my own, and the 10 is very much I'm going to act for a community. And the fact that this one was upright and this one was reversed, it's really giving me like that yin and yang balance vibe where you
Mm,
have to make sure both of these things are in harmony. Um, and and yeah, I think the judgment in this case is just to make you to not raise the stakes but make you aware of the stakes in maintaining this balance. So I think that's the general message here. And sometimes I need to like talk through it a few times because I can look at them all separately and then be like, okay, but if this, but if that, but yeah.
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
Well, that's really interesting. Thank you.
you're welcome. I'm glad. So yeah, I hope that gave you something to chew upon.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, is there anyone else in chat who has a question? Because I can ask Moon for a reading. I just don't want to talk over somebody. I don't want to be all King of Lightningy.
I think we were free to go ahead.
All right, well, Moon, if you could give me some insight as to my current health situation, I would appreciate that.
Let's see. Mm,
Thinking of the right deck?
yes. We're gonna go for the fairy tale like for you.
Ooh. Very pretty.
Well, we got the High Priestess.
Wow, we got a jumper already in the High Priestess.
Yep. My loot. Ten of Swords, and I'm going for a 3 card reading as well.
Okay.
Just move them a bit over here. With the 3 of Pentacles. So the High Priestess. In this card, I'm like, I really love these cards because they're so full of symbolism. Like if you look at it, this one, there's an owl flying at the bottom. There's like feminine figure floating. She's holding a pomegranate that was bit into. On her shawl, there are like the symbols of the moon. So like there's just a bunch of things going on. But what I really associate the High Priestess with is nurturing, I would say. And the Ten of Swords that comes right after, it feels very contradicting to me. But as you said before, it might be to gather attention to this message that's following through. And but yes, the book also says that the High Priestess is also like about wisdom, knowledge, and learning. And on the flip side, there's also intuition and virtue. So it's kind of a whole mumbo jumbo of, a powerful instance of knowledge, of caring, nurturing. And with the Ten of Swords that follows. Yeah, so like, hang on. I need to see the last card as well because I'm at the state where, it's not all tying together.
Yeah, absolutely. Take your time.
Of course.
Sometimes I find what I even have to do is write down the results and then think about it for a few days. So reading on the spot is difficult sometimes because you're not sure what the story the cards are telling you is.
Right? Yeah, so the High Priestess in this case, I feel is really kind of like tying these two other cards together. Because in here, the Ten of Swords is kind of the final revelation of the truth. It's a very solemn card in the sense that it's a case of the person accepting the reality of things. It's not necessarily a negative card because the reality of things can be positive or negative. But the acceptation of the reality is a burden in itself in this situation. Whether the change is positive or negative, the change is something that is difficult to accept in this context. And for the Three of Pentacles, it's actually 3 comes after 2, obviously. And in this case, it's the fruition of teamwork. So the happy results of what comes after teamwork. Achieving something that's beyond what was expected. And also like being able to reach out for help and receiving that help. So I feel like really these two cards are really bond together with the knowledge and nurturing and importance of the High Priestess, so that, you know, the realization that is heavy to bear doesn't have to be faced alone. With the teamwork, with the help that you're achieving, this realization that you're coming to terms with can be turned into something that's not negative, that is not as difficult to bear. So I think that like overall it's a positive outlook, even though like this situation right now might be filled with, you know, feeling like it's a burden, feeling like it's final in a sense. I think that the hopefulness that the Three of Pentacles brings, which is really anchored into reality and physicality, shows that it's not going to be a bad ending, even though the realization was distraught, in a sense. But yeah, like the fact that there's the High Priestess and the Three of Pentacles kind of softens the Ten of Swords for me.
Yeah,
I
for
think.
Sure.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's interesting because the Three of Pentacles I think of as kind of at the beginning of a journey, and the 10 of Swords at the end of a journey. But
yeah,
if you think of the Nine of Swords, that card represents nightmares, like literal nightmares. Another thing could be the 10 is representing what comes after the nightmare.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way to see it. Yeah, it's like I was trying to kind of make
reading because the 3 cards don't really work well together.
I know. One thing as well is like I was trying to make abstraction of what I know about your your health situation, so that it would be a bit more of like a reading close to the cards as opposed to like me projecting myself into the reading.
But this is a difficult. It's a little bit muddy, especially with the High Priestess, because I find, like I said, if a major arcana comes up, it usually means that's important. But those first 5, like the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, the Emperor, the Empress, those usually represent a specific person.
Yeah.
And it's interesting if that card is meant to be me. It's interesting that it's such a highly feminine card.
Yeah.
Or there's some other energy that's going to come into play. So it's definitely interesting.
It's really interesting as well, because in this specific book they're giving the High Priestess a very transformative quality. For example, the pomegranate is an icon of Persephone, who tasted the seeds and thus tied herself to Hades. It is a
Yes.
fruit of fertility and death, which, reincarnation and change and stuff. And then the moons embroidered upon her garments wax and wane, the new crescent and gibbous moons that create the full cycle embraced in one. So it's very much, as per the book, like the author really wanted to also show the quality of transformation of change in
Yeah, and
this
of
card, I think.
transition,
Yeah.
I think, as well.
Yeah.
And like that kind of leads into the 10 too. It's definitely an interesting reading. Toot says my
Mm-hmm.
current health situation doesn't really work well with me either. So yeah, it's not yeah, that's really interesting.
Well, I'm glad
Nice
it's
cards.
interesting.
Yeah.
I find that air cards tied with the pentacles can be so difficult to
Hmm.
reconcile as well.
Hmm.
Um, but I guess in a sense as well, it kind of shows that um the grief is mental and it's gonna be helped or shape into something that's very solid and material in a way, if that makes sense.
It is always interesting, especially because like sometimes I'll find when I get a reading like this where it's not immediately clear or it
Mm-hmm.
just seems to be three random cards that have nothing to do with each other. The
Yeah.
more I think on it, or something will happen like later in the day that makes me go, oh, okay, right, yeah. So not necessarily, like I said, like I don't feel like the cards can predict what's going to happen next Tuesday at 4 p.m. But they can kind of reframe events in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So something might happen like tomorrow that makes me go, oh, the High Priestess, that makes sense, okay. Um, so yeah, it's and that's what I find the best readings do is they kind of stick with you and
Yes, I completely agree.
guide you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, and I think that's why we all try to have such a good relationship with our cards because the more
We want
difficult,
to. Mm?
yeah, the more difficult
Oh,
it is to do a reading, um, the more difficult it is to put those cards together and make them make sense in context with each other. The less helpful the reading is going to be. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be um, it's going to be a little bit opaque or unclear. Uh,
mm-hmm.
so yeah, and also it's just nice to have a relationship with the cards.
Yes, because I was going to say, like, it's nice to know that something you look to guide you
Mhm.
agrees with you. Like you have a friendly relationship. It's not as a complete stranger, because no one wants to be guided by a complete stranger.
Yeah, yeah, and like that's how I feel with some of my newer decks or decks that I haven't used very much. Like you saw the Mystic Fairy, I haven't even shuffled that one recently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I shuffled it when I first got it, and then I realized that it was all uh, in Chinese, so I needed to label it, so I put it back in order. Um, but so those decks, like they just don't talk to you as much as other ones do. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. That reminds me. Have you ever done an interview with a tarot deck?
yes, I do. I have actually. I find they're very interesting, but unless I like interpret them right away, I find that they kind of fade from my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times I've done an interview and then let it sit for a few days, and then it's just like gone.
Yeah.
Whatever I discovered. So actually, I can show you the deck interview spread that I used. It's a pretty short one. Um, just 6 cards. Please introduce yourself, your strengths as a deck, your limitations as a deck. What can I learn from you? What is the best way to work with you, and the outcome of our relationship?
That's a really lovely spread. Like I don't have my because I have a notebook dedicated to tarot spreads that
Mhm.
I did and stuff like that. So that's where I wrote down my interviews.
Okay.
But it's nice that you have a spread for it. I would usually just wing it. I would sit in front of a deck and shuffle, and I didn't think of a question to ask the deck, and I'd be like, there you go. Here's the question. And
Yeah,
then I
yeah.
would
Like
just note it down.
usually I just do a 3 or 4 card spread, whatever feels right. But I like collecting different spreads. Like, and you can see I have a few written down
Mm-hmm.
here. But the deity dossier one was really interesting because that one, it's more for people who are doing deity work and aren't sure and are like starting out on a new relationship with deity. And it's
Mm-hmm.
more so it's big. You can see this is the big one I showed.
Oh yeah,
But
that's the
it's
big
more
one.
like communicating with the divine and figuring out your relationship with them and that kind of thing. So I found that this one was pretty interesting for me to do when I did it. But I think it took me a solid like 2 weeks to interpret this because it's such a big spread and there's so many
Yes.
interconnected things. So
Mm-hmm.
I think if that's a message that anyone in the chat, hi Bella, um, can take away is that if you're reading tarot, you don't have to figure out the
Interpret
meaning of the
everything.
cards right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true because honestly, I tend to do like that's one thing that I really struggle with, putting aside time to do things. So
Absolutely.
when I do tarot readings, it's usually like a 3 card spread that I do in like 15 minutes and then I go back to other things. But yeah, it's really true that like you don't have to interpret things right away. So if I wanted to do a more elaborate one, like I don't I wouldn't have to sit for like, 2 hours. I could do this thing and then interpret 1 card at a time over a certain period.
Yeah.
And I never had considered that before. So that's really
Yeah.
nice to think about.
And what I like to do is I actually like to like take a blank piece of paper and draw out the spread and like what card went where so I can kind of like write notes under each card and see the connections because like you saw when I was reading, I was moving the cards around and moving them closer to each other or further away or up or down. And that's
Mhm.
kind of part of how I read is just that visual connection between the cards. And I
Mhm.
find so I when I write them down and I don't have the cards themselves in front of me because I've packed up my deck. I like having that visual reminder of like, okay, this was close to here, and like this goes over here, and this goes over here, and then this is connected to this.
Mhm. I completely agree. When I wrote down my spreads, I would definitely do like you where I drew the card and like the intent behind the card, and
Mm-hmm.
then I wrote inside the card which card was pulled for that one. And
Mm-hmm.
then like on the following pages I would like write down the interpretations and everything.
Yeah. What I've even done is if I was doing a spread with one of these like more artistic decks and I couldn't see it, I would actually go
Mhm.
and take my Rider Waite and recreate the spread and then try and read it that way, see if that helped. Um,
Mhm.
but sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. So it really, tarot doesn't have to be a big intimidating thing. It can be a tool to just help you focus your morning meditations or focus your intentions for the day or something like that. Like the other day, I I drew a card in the morning and it wasn't the Two of Cups, but it was a cup card. And that day I realized that I had been kind of not not tending to my relationships as much as I needed to be. So the card in the morning made me kind of wake up and go, okay, like remind me to check in, be more connected in an emotional way, and really
Mhm.
nurture those relationships. So
Yeah.
it isn't telling the future. It's just reminders or
Mhm.
reframing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I think we like Kiss It Better mentioned it, you'd mentioned it a lot, and like that's also my preferred way to work with tarot. Like to use it really as an introspection tool, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's and sometimes you just want to look at the pretty art.
Completely, yeah.
Yeah,
Because yeah, there's so many that just spark joy,
yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Um, and the Disney tarot one, um, because it relates the actions of the characters to the meanings of the cards, it's sometimes a little bit easier to read that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Anyways, well, I think I'm going to wrap it up
Yes,
there. Are you going to continue, or are you
I'm
getting
going
set?
to sign off as well.
Oh, okay. All right. So
But
yeah, this was absolutely lovely. I had such a great time.
likewise, I'm really happy we did this together.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe we can do it again sometime. Get some
For sure.
questions going from chat and that kind of thing. It was fun.
Yes.
And yeah, and
Thank
if anyone has any further questions or anything, you can drop it in either one of our discords, and one of us will be
yes.
along.
Yes. And while DH is still on, you guys in my chat should totally go give them a follow. So at the cozy DH.
Thank
Shout
you, thank
out.
you.
Yes.
I
And thank
appreciate
you
it.
again so much. I love the idea and the execution. I was really happy. So
Oh,
thank you so
good.
much, DH.
Yeah,
I
no,
hope
I'm
you have a
so.
really good night.
Yeah, you too. I
Thank
hope you have
you.
a great night, and sleep well, and we will see you. So, Moon, when is your next stream?
My next stream is going to be Thursday. And, since we're doing something a bit different tonight, I thought why not do something different Thursday as well? So we're going to build a cult, guys.
Oh,
So I'm
fantastic.
gonna need you. I'm gonna need all of you there because you're gonna have to be participating in my cult. It's not a choice. It's an order from your great leader.
All right then.
Praise, yes. It says praise. Double gasp, Jums. Yeah, Jums, you're gonna have to be there because you're gonna be a follower in my cult.
Yep.
Don't
I'll do
worry,
my
I'll
best.
revive you if you die. But yes, my next stream is gonna be Thursday. I think yours is Wednesday, right?
Yes, my next stream is Wednesday. We're going to be playing a new life sim game called Roots of Paka, and it's
Yes.
I'm very excited about it. Everyone is raving. It's like you're in the Stone Age and there's dinosaurs and woolly mammoths, and I'm very excited.
I'm very excited to see you play it then. All
Okay.
right. Well, thank you so much, DH. Have a very good night.
Yes, you too. Have a good one, everybody. Good night.
Bye bye.